Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Gray Line, where we're all right and wrong at the same time. Fuck it. No, yeah, okay, yeah. There is like, well, I already blew it or whatever. And I'm joined here. Did you just wow me?
No.
I don't believe you, like at all. But with that said, I'm joined here once again by my compadre here in crime, Solar Elemental. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I would put a Palico sound, but unfortunately I couldn't find one, so...
Well, all right. That's what the sound is. All right. And today, as you just may have heard, we have a very special guest, at least a very special one for me. Like, shut up, people. Please welcome Uncle Silver Gaming, aka Greg, aka Jason Momoa's Miss Twin. How are you doing, man?
I'm okay. How are you guys doing?
Doing good?
I'm doing quite all right. Thank you very much. And well, yeah, the title and the screen don't lie. We are talking about, I believe, my game of this year. I'm not joking that to a single extent. Monster Hunter Rise that came out for the Nintendo Switch. And yeah, just like previously, Solar will work as the showcase that this show is recorded in front of a live studio of Palicos. In this case, Solar's. Thanks. Well, let's start with the common stuff. Well, first of all, flip note. Hello. Surprised I didn't follow till now. Well, here you are right now, and I hope you enjoy it. And well, with that, let's begin with, like I said, like an introduction and all. First of all, like Greg, what is the kind of stuff that you do in your streams? What is how can people know you from this and all? You know.
I've been doing a little bit of content creation here and there for a bit. I have a YouTube channel which I don't pay enough attention to. But mostly what I do is stream. We do a bunch of different kinds of games, retro games, some modern games. And, we stream, we have a good time. We talk about a lot of stuff, probably ramble more than we play games sometimes. But, we just, I don't know, just try and have a good time and just try and enjoy ourselves on stream and, just vibe out, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah, the good vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we try to.
Yeah. Well, and I can say that you succeed at that more times than you give yourself credit for. And with that, again, let's start with some more proper introductions when it comes to the game or the series. Greg, what is your experience with Monster Hunter as a whole, and just when your thoughts when this game got announced and all that?
Well, my experience with Monster Hunter is actually not very elaborate. I never played the franchise. I never got to experience it, which I think is very common for a lot of people in the West. There were Monster Hunter games before, but a lot of people just didn't interact with them very much. And it was a while before I found out that the series was very popular. Funny story, when people really started to talk about the series, I remember thinking, really, that PlayStation game where you put like a disc in and it generates a creature for you, not realizing that was Monster Rancher and not Monster Hunter.
Oh, okay.
So I was very confused as to why that game was so popular. And I didn't realize until later that that's not the same thing. That's something different. So when I looked into the franchise, I realized, I have no idea what this is. And it wasn't until World on the PS4 and late into World on the PS4 that I gave it a shot. I said, all right, everybody tells me to give it a try. It was on sale. It was $20. It was during, I'd say around November or so, somewhere near the Christmas season of 2019. And so I picked it up and said, all right, let me give this a try. And what's that?
It was on Christmas. Yeah, I remember.
So yeah, I gave it a try around then, and I just fell in love with it. I thought it was incredible. I started it, and it was just so interesting. Like it was simple, but and repetitive, and then interesting all at the same time. It's a sort of strange. I hate to say repetitive because it sounds like such a bad term, but it was a lot of fun. Put it that way.
It's a good kind of grind.
Yeah. It was very, very much like a Muso game. You know, those Dynasty Warriors games where it seems like the same thing over and over and over again, but it is and it isn't. You know, because there's really only you go into you pick a mission, you go in, you hunt monsters, right on the nose, and you're done the mission. And then that's it. But it's just so the variety of monsters that you fight and the variety of weapons that you have at your disposal, it's just so interesting. It grabbed me more than I really thought it was going to.
But when it comes to that, I remember
more than I really thought it was going.
But prior to that, of your purchasing, because so just to give context for the listeners, I've been following Greg for about 6 years. Or when was the Punisher playthrough on SUV? Because that's when you started as well on YouTube.
Oh,
yeah, I know.
2015, somewhere around there, 2016. I don't remember. The Punisher was one of those where I was there. I was there for something else, and they were doing Punisher because I wasn't there at the beginning of Punisher, and I was there for something else. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we're doing Punisher." So I was like, "All right, I'll watch this game and I'll commentate on it." And what a crazy game that is!
Yeah,
that's a hell of an experience.
Yeah, I'll say. And but because of that, during your Twitch, and you were like, kind of don't know what to play for the PS4 or whatever, and I'm just like, hey, there's this game, there's this game, I want to say at least 3 months. I will be that asshole the most respectful way possible. Monster Hunter is on sale, and you're like, what about it? Okay, I guess I'll leave it at that. Because
you definitely weren't the only person telling me about the game. There were a lot of people saying that it's actually. I think that's something that, and I don't know if the numbers reflect this or what, but I believe that World was probably the biggest that Monster Hunter had ever been in the West.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember Monster Hunter getting the kind of attention that World did.
Yeah, no, it is to this day the best-selling Monster Hunter game. I think Rise is the closest to it as of right now, but don't quote me too much on that part. But Monster Hunter is World is the most popular one, and one day just you were saying we're gonna get the holiday. I'm gonna take a holiday vacation, and I got this game. I don't know, something about hunting monsters. I'm like, wait, what? You can't just say that. You can just.
Yeah. I was like, I'll give it a shot, see what it's like, and it was really good. It was in depth enough to make me interested, but not so overly complicated that 20 minutes in, I was like, okay, I don't want to deal with this. It also helped that Iceborne was out, which was the expansion for it, and because that was out, they had a bunch of gear and stuff that they give you early. So I plowed through the early game just because the gear. I played for a while before the game actually required me to change my gear.
Yeah. Flip note, it wasn't until 2018 when the Western World started to take off. I noticed the franchise more. People were talking highly about the series. Yeah, it wasn't late 2019. The Generations, and to be fair, Generations is I know I'm gonna bring some PTSD flashbacks to some Sonic fans out there, but Generations was the last classic Monster Hunter. World was an evolution of the series in terms of mechanics. Yeah, I know, right? Just to give the biggest example before jumping more into that. I will always bring the case like, oh, you think this game is hard? Try drinking a potion and not being able to walk, like because like the character will just like drink a potion, strike a pose, and then like, yeah, okay, I know you feel good, but the monster's coming right at us. Move, damn it, move.
See, I worry that would have turned me off of the game.
Like there are some archaic elements from classic Monster Hunter all the way through World, but World was the one that like really started to legit get into that sort of thing. And with that, I do want to start with within like just the level design and more specifically Kamura Village, because I think we can start with the comparison of the environments and all. What did you think of the aesthetic of Kamura Village, comparing it to the New World?
I like Kamura Village. The Asian aesthetic, the Japanese aesthetic especially, is very interesting. I worried at the beginning when I very first started playing the game. I worried that it was a bit too much, that it was a bit too hard into the aesthetic. One of the things I love about fantasy is it takes you to places you've never seen before. Whether you're talking about medieval fantasy or science fiction fantasy, one of the things I love to see is environments like nothing I've ever seen before. And looking at the Asian aesthetic, it was new and interesting and also very familiar. So I was sort of worried that it was going to feel too, okay, well, here we go with the Japanese style, here and Japanese style there, but it actually grew on me. It did work very, very well. I don't know if I prefer it to World. That's what I'll say. I did really enjoy World. Part of it is that I like I think I like the village in World more than I like the village in Rise.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
It's something about it felt bigger. First of all, it felt a lot bigger. I like the whole, it felt very like slapped together. It felt like this giant wood structure that you needed the little elevator thing to go up, and it had multi-levels and I don't know. So there was something about the town and world that I enjoyed a little bit more. Not to mention the town and world had that acquisitions lady who I
yeah, I remember.
I quite fancied her.
Yeah, I mean, we have Hinoa here, but again, we'll get into that in a little bit. But also, like, I should add, like, Solar, what is your experience with Monster Hunter? And yeah, I'm putting you on the spot, knowing very well.
Well, I mean,
the answer.
It's not too bad. Like, I mean, for me, I started Monster Hunter on 3. Like, back when I had my Wii U, I tried it out on when I was hearing kind of how much of a cult following it had. And so I had gotten it, and I did not get all that far in because I'm very poor when it comes to a lot of the item management and also sub-management in games, especially when it comes to the older games. Like you said, some of them can be a little bit archaic. So like when I made it to like the desert area, where those like flaming rooster chickens with the claws would breathe fire at you and punch the shit out of you, would show up a lot. That's kind of where I stopped, because in that environment you also have to account for the heat, so you have to cool yourself down as well, and then add on to the top of that you got to keep your durability up. And I kind of felt like I was doing something wrong, since I kind of stayed stagnant with the gear that I had. I know that you gotta go looking for materials and stuff, but there was just something that wasn't really clicking when I
don't wanna.
Yeah, when I played through 3. And then I got 4 on the 3DS, and I kind of had the same problem. It just wasn't really clicking with me. And then I tried out World when it came out, and it felt completely different. Like, you know, it kind of felt a little bit more streamlined, but still kind of, you know, felt like a Monster Hunter game. So it felt more approachable, and you know, I definitely enjoy World more than I do like 3 and 4. And it, you know, from what I've seen of Rise, it kind of looks like, you know, they're kind of more focusing on that more approachable direction to newcomers instead of like hardcore fans. But you know, that's basically where I am right now in terms of my Monster Hunter experience.
Yeah, but I mean, you also watch some memes with me. You also
Yeah, I'd agree with the approachability. I'd absolutely agree with the approachability for one thing, especially, which is the village quests.
Yeah.
Monster Hunter, apparently it's not an uncommon thing that Monster Hunter is very difficult, especially early on.
Yeah.
And the village quest, I found that was I thought the village quest was like an old thing that had come back or something that I just didn't remember from World. And apparently that's a new thing where it's a relatively lower difficulty storyline with lower difficulty hunts. And I think that does a good job of helping people get into the game without feeling like they're bashing their head against the wall 3 hunts in.
Yeah. Yeah.
The major difference in the context of the quests is that these ones like are still low rank, but easy mode low rank, at least from what I managed to gather when playing. Because again, one thing that you did that I know you are familiar with is at least the whole low rank, high rank system. With high rank is like, oh, you just beat all the monsters, will do it again now, but they hit harder and your armor doesn't matter anymore. Like what?
Or it matters more, I would say.
Oh
you
yeah,
really have to pay attention to your gear.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean it does matter, but not the one you're wearing anymore. Not the one.
Yeah.
What I did like was that you have the village quest, but the one thing that was new was the license system, which I couldn't really record because you only had one chance to play them. Which is like, if you complete the village quest, you can just get back into high rank with these. You don't have to do the low rank gathering missions anymore, because World had that whole SOS thing where like, oh no, you're playing the story and the online is into that. Like you can, meanwhile here, the village quest is its own thing. Like the story mode is kind of its own thing. Like that's the very new thing of this game. Once again, comparing it to previous. In my case, I thought that in my case, because I do love how colorful dyslexia, how colorful the games can be, like with their aesthetics and villages and everything. And the new world, because Monster Hunter World was so emphasized on quote unquote realism in their fantasy world, they will tone down a little some of the colors. So like, and once again, it's just the overall style of Kamura what makes me appreciate it a little bit more. But I think that part ascends more into the level design for me, because it's a level design where I think really shines in comparison to World. But I would like to know your thoughts first on that, Greg.
As far as the color choicing, you're right. It is a little bit more muted in World. It sort of fit though. It fit with the fit with the aesthetic, as far as, like I said, when you talk about the town itself, you're talking about a giant wooden structure, and it was, the whole idea was that this whole structure, this whole town is something that was kind of slapped together, as opposed to something like Kamura Village, which feels like it's been there for a long time. So the more muted colors and the more rustic aesthetic sort of worked for the game. So I would wonder if that's a design choice, if that was sort of the purpose, which I would say that it worked perfectly. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. As far as the going out into the map and stuff and seeing everything, I don't know. I felt like World was still very colorful, but maybe I'm just misremembering it. I can tell you that some of the environments in this game are just incredible. They're just I mean, when you go to the Frost Islands, when the lava area, the lava caverns, I think is actually, I don't know why, for some reason I just really kind of like that area. And the flooded forest, which I think I like the flooded forest just because of the big pyramid.
Yeah, in my favorite was Frost Island. And here's what I'm gonna bring up, because first of all, the major thing that this game has that has been a thing since 4 but never fully realized was the verticality of the gameplay. Like just how you can now get through all the mountains, or just look how much of the environment can you explore. But previous games, including World, were always like with a bit of limitation in terms of how much you can do. And World for me was always like very slow because you're only running at one speed, and because the levels are so gargantuan, I at least speaking for myself, I will get lost quite a lot in the game, because there are the floor system, but now because of the wire bug implementation in this game and how they pretty much went like, okay, oh, you saw this game called Breath of the Wild, we can kind of do something with this and just climb everything. I guess.
I mean, there's no climbing, which is always sort of awkward to me, but the wire bug system just works very well. The World had the grappling hook or something. The
clutch claw,
the clutch claw. It was something that they added. See, and here's my problem with that. When I first played World, Iceborne was already out. The clutch claw was something that was added for Iceborne, so I never experienced Monster Hunter without something like that. And I would say that the clutch claw wasn't even as useful as the wire bugs are.
No, it really wasn't, because the clutch claw, the major thing that it had was that you could grab onto the monster and just like mess them up, like bump their heads into walls and all that. But in terms of the level design, no, they did shit. Just grab this bug, and that that was kind of it.
Which makes sense.
And,
I mean, if those areas weren't designed for that at first, and then you suddenly, if you look back at this is a weird reference, but Sonic 2. If you've ever played Sonic the Hedgehog 2 in the Genesis, that was not designed a certain way. It was not designed for you to have a lot of scalability. So then when you put Sonic 2 into your Sonic Knuckles cartridge, and you suddenly have access to Knuckles, there was not a whole lot of extra stuff for him to do, because the game just wasn't designed for that. So that was sort of the problem with World, was that the clutch claw just didn't feel necessary because the game wasn't initially designed for it, so there shouldn't be a lot to do with it. This game is very much designed with being able to go up instead of just forward and left and right.
Exactly. We can argue that this level design just has that more fitting because it is with that intention, like it's working with that since the beginning. But I don't know, I think even comparing to World, because World had a lot of, like I said, it had multiple floors, a lot of climbing and everything, to the where it was also very claustrophobic, since you cannot just, I'm stuck. Whoop, let's go up. Okay, where's the ramp that I'm supposed to go up?
Yeah, you have to find the way up.
You have to find the way up, and we're here. You are the way.
Yeah, just go.
Sorry.
Just go straight up, grab a wall, run on it a little, hold the stamina button, run on it a little bit, flip off, zip up again, and there you were. You were all. I mean, it's one of those. One thing that I like about mechanics like this is these are the kind of mechanics that when you're in the real world, you may look around you and think, man, if I had my wire bug right now, I'd be upstairs already.
Yeah.
I will say with all honesty, like now with Rise, it's harder for me to go into world like more than it is to go into the classic games like 4 and 3 and Generations, because since world pretty much has this sort of level design but not the move set, and because of that I do feel that stuff get lost in transition. And meanwhile previous games, because their work with the clunkiness, it just feels faster. Like for some reason, is that weird sense of this is so clunky that I'm moving faster instead of feeling like I'm being limited. I don't know. It's a weird version of that.
That makes sense.
And with that, like, I do want to like go into. We're gonna be jumping into topics here and there. Like, what did you think of the online? Like the way the online was executed in this game.
Oh, I'm very surprised that it works so well. Sorry, Nintendo. With Nintendo, I expect mediocre at best.
Yeah.
Especially for something of this scale. It's one thing to have a board game type game or something that is not very constantly interactive, I would say. Something like Smash Brothers, where there's lots of data being transferred all the time. So I was just expecting it to not work that well. And when we had the demo, we did the demo on stream a couple of times, and I tried it out a couple of times off stream, and I was surprised how well it worked even on Wi-Fi. That it worked incredibly well.
Look, in my case, I was also surprised, but I also give Capcom the credit that they're known for having dedicated servers. Like, in fact, they are so known that to the point where when they shut those servers down, you just feel like shit because, like, well, guess I can't play it. Or guess I can.
That era of my life is over.
And that was 400 hours of my life.
It's funny that you only stopped at 400.
But trust me, man. I don't know what to tell you.
What's your game time look like on Rise so far? What do you think?
Right now, 205.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I'm at 120. I can actually boot my game up now. I think I'm at about 120 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't bad. I will say a lot of it at work.
Yeah, and I will say immediately, this game has a better online than the one in World, and I'm gonna explain probably why. World had this weird thing where you needed to fire the SOS signal. Flipno says he's at 50. Again, that's the average. Flipno, don't worry. That's normal. Anybody that's already on the 3 digits, that's normal. You're gonna be like first time.
We're playing it a lot more. I'm playing this at work, and my game is on for 4 hours a day just at work. So, that's 4 or 5 days a week. So, this is a bit normal. I worry that it go. The problem is that when you do that, like the DLC that came out, I've been past it for a little while now. I've made all the gear that I want to make. I've made most of the decorations I want to make. So now I'm basically just looking for something to do.
Look, I mean, by this point, the best we can do is always do that whole grinding gacha style for the talismans. so you
That-
can
Yeah, that's
like
what I'm
get
doing
some
now.
proper stats and all.
138 hours.
Oh,
I just
nice.
turned my game
Okay.
on. Yeah, I thought it was lower. 100. I'm at
Mhm.
138 hours. And yeah, grinding for talismans is the thing that I'm doing the most right now. Other than taking a mission here and there. You know, it's funny you mentioned the online, and I haven't done a lot of online fighting.
Yeah.
I haven't done a lot of the looking for groups and just fighting just fighting random fights. Whereas with World, I did that a lot. But I think with World, it came at an interesting time in my life, just because I was looking for a lot of stuff to do, and then so I got it around the end of 2019, and so 2020 happened, and we all know what happened there. So a lot of us were just looking for things to do. So I ended up playing a lot of the online missions for a while until my attention went to a different game.
Yeah, again, 2020 was full with a lot of crazy stuff. The moment Animal Crossing came out, like again, that affected us all. Let's be real. Oh yeah, and also the Corona, but that's besides the point.
Well, I mean, for me, not to move away from Monster Hunter, but for me, yes, there was a lot going on in my personal life, and then Corona happened, so we all had at least 3 months off, and we were looking for something to do. Right around the time Animal Crossing came out, and I would say less than a month later, Call of Duty Warzone came out, which was the battle royale, and that game, it was free, and I said, all right, let me give it a shot. So most of my time was divided between a little bit of Monster Hunter, a little bit of Monster Hunter World, a lot of Animal Crossing, and a lot of Warzone, and then eventually the Monster Hunter just sort of phased out. But I did a lot of online in Monster Hunter, and I haven't done that much in this game.
I will say that there's also the benefit that you're getting it at launch, while you got Monster Hunter World, and everybody was already like playing, fighting Fatalis in Iceborne, like the end game stuff.
Yeah, that definitely helped that I'm sort of in it with everybody right now. Whereas with World, some of the online stuff I did in World was fine, and then some of it was I'd go into a dungeon and they're face stomping the monsters because they're tricked out in Iceborne gear, and I'm in mid-level World gear at best.
Yeah, and Flipno mentioned something like with the whole like just how easy it is to like get into the quest, and that's what I was mentioning, like why I know that. Well, I can say for sure that it's better than in World, because in World, since it was part of the story, like the story quests were just the quest. Like there wasn't a separated option more than the optional, which was just to repeat the missions. So if you were just starting a new mission and to fight a new monster, like no, you had to trigger. Like, have you triggered the cutscene yet? No, it's on the left. No, it's easy to find. I swear. It's easy. Just things like that. Meanwhile, here, like, okay, here's the quest. Let's go. Boom. So again, that there is that difference already on its own. So again, I think that, and just again, Capcom has dedicated servers, especially for Monster Hunter. So I think that's why Nintendo just, what do we have to do? Put the console. Okay, what else? That's it. Don't touch the internet, for the love of God.
It definitely helps that Nintendo is not in charge of this with their Windows 98 computers.
God, I forgot about that review.
Yeah, that's
never forget. No.
Yeah, we won't. Every time your game of Splatoon disconnects, you'll know why it happened. I'm very interested to see where their internet goes from here.
Yeah, same here.
Hopefully they've upgraded to ME.
Yeah.
Yeah, to at least XP. Like goddamn. And with that, I do want to jump right now into the gameplay because Flipno mentioned something very important: the Palamutes, which are new, completely new thing for Rise. They're one of their many gimmicks, which we'll get to that one in a bit. Don't worry. And what do you think of the Palamutes? I just want to start right into that.
I love them. I like the doggos. My only problem with the doggos is that when you go into so you get a Palamute and a Palico for solo, and that's great because you've got the Palico, which does a lot of beneficial things for you, and then you've got the Palamute, which does some beneficial things to you, mostly that you can ride it around. The problem is when you go online, you only get one, and I feel like the Palamute is the obvious choice. Like, it almost feels like there's no point in taking a Palico because the Palamute's transportation is so useful that it almost feels like it's the obvious choice.
Yeah, it definitely is a disadvantage that you have to pick one because you know that everybody is going to pick the Palamute because they want to get into that as soon as possible. Yeah. Unless you're doing something like an expedition, which again, thank God that the expeditions are completely optional now. Instead of, part of the story, walk around and find shit from worlds.
Yeah, right. I forgot that was like that.
Yeah. Again, I know it sounds like I'm shitting on World, and I kind of am, but it's just that now, like, I do commend Rise for just grabbing everything that worked from World and just improve upon it. Because a little bit of history here: the people that worked on this are the ones that worked on the portable games, not the 3DS ones. The legit called Portable Third, Frontier.
These were
Generations,
the PSP games?
like all, the PSP games and again, PSP games and mainly Generations when it comes to the 3DS, and they're always known for going crazy and more colorful and anything with their games and ideas. Like, they're the ones that introduced the idea of having a Palico playable to begin with, as well as in World. They worked on Iceborne. That's why they added skills and just things to make the game more flashy. So that's where the major differences started. But now that they have this game for themselves, like entirely on their own, it's completely clear the pacing in this game is way different from what World was trying to convey. Like, there's no tutorials to a certain degree, except for the gimmicks. The Palamutes are just like they just give you all of the stuff that you have to do and just go at it instead of, like I said, like, they don't try to hold your hand and explain anything.
Which, you know, is a plus and a minus. You know, if you're somebody who's totally new to Monster Hunter, it wouldn't hurt to have some sort of reasonable explanation. You know, one of the reasons that a lot of games like this will have starting quests where they introduce a lot of these mechanics is because that would operate as the tutorial. So without it, there may not be. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you got pretty far into the game before you ever bothered to create new gear for your pals. You know, just because it's explained, but it's probably not explained that it's important. You know what I mean? They say, hey, you can make new gear for your Palicos and your Palamute. And you would say, okay. And maybe they don't explain that, well, you probably want to because they do get hit, they do get stunned, and that affects their ability to help you out. Not to mention, depending on what you equip them with, they can heal you from certain status ailments. They can sever monster parts. They can stun the monster. You know, They do a good job of making sure that you know your pets are there or your pals are there, but I feel like they understate how important they can be.
That was like one thing I was curious about, because like since there is both the Palico and Palamute, is that because I remember the whole thing with the Palico, they give the support and sometimes attack, but more kind of giving you like buffs and help and everything. And since the other one is for transportation, does that one like not like participate in fights as much as the Palico would?
No, it attacks. It does attack, and it does help you. The one thing that I noticed is that it doesn't heal you.
Mm-hmm.
At no point will the Palamute do anything to heal you. But there are times when I'll get stunned, and my Palamute will run over and bonk me, and it'll wake me up from that. Or if I get sleep or something, it'll do that. But it does attack. It does fight during the battles, and it'll take hits, and it'll get stunned just like anything else. And when it stinks because when it gets stunned, I can't ride it around, because that's another good thing that I like about the Palamutes, especially, is that you can summon them to ride while the fight's going on, and while you're riding it, you can perform actions. So, I mean, you mentioned earlier in some of the other games where if you would try and drink a potion, you would stand still. In this game, you can walk. It's just extremely slowly. You go into this sort of hey, I'm chugging a potion swagger while you're walking around. What you can do, especially for sharpening your weapon, if you have to sharpen your weapon in the middle of the fight, summon your Palamute, get on it, and just ride around in a circle while you're healing and while you're sharpening, and it'll give you that option.
That's really good and optimal.
It is. It really is optimal, because again, I've showed you those videos, so like sometimes you let me heal, and nope, there's a Rajan coming towards you, like nope, sorry, and now imagine that standing still.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you're familiar with how the potions work. The potions will heal when you drink them. They take a second, and then it heals a chunk of your health, and like immediately, and then it will heal more health over a few seconds. Yeah. So if you perform any actions while that health is going up, you'll cancel that healing. So you get like a 30% or 40% burst of heal, and then it'll slowly heal the rest really quick. So you can try that, but if you have to suddenly dodge out of the way, especially when you talk about some of the later monsters that have multiple attacks in rapid succession, you may have to heal, and you need those few seconds. So hopping on your Palamute is a good way to run around, especially if you're like me. I don't carry those what is it called, the Farcaster, the one that lets you warp back to the town in a fight. I don't carry any of that stuff, so I just hop on my Palamute and I run away from the fight if I absolutely have to.
But the Palamutes definitely make that element way better, and I do hope that they become a staple in the next generation of Monster Hunter stuff. Because like some people were asking, like, oh, is this the 6th generation? Like, is the next gen? Like, no, this is still World. There's now portable 5th if you wanna take that approach. Like this, and for me, like the biggest thing for the Palamutes is that once again they solved that one thing that was even in World, I said, made everything just a little bit more difficult, which was again traveling around. Like even if you get lost, riding the Palamute to just know where you're going is way more effective than just slowly but surely getting there. Just
which is very frustrating in the online stuff, where you get fainted, you go back to the camp, and you're rushing to get back to the fight because you don't want to leave your teammates fighting the monster by yourself. And now you can hop on the Palamute and get there significantly faster. Or worse, you faint right before the monster dies, and by the time you get back, you don't get to carve it up.
Oh yeah, that has happened. because when you slay a monster, you only have 60 seconds to finish whatever you wanted to do, from carving the monster to maybe a material or something like cutting the tail off.
Picking
But-
materials. I also run around and I look to see whatever herbs and stuff I can grab right before.
Yeah. In my case, like what I can say is that I also want to get a little bit into the weapons. I know you are into just one.
Yeah. I
but
wish I could.
how
I
would
wish
you
I could
say?
provide you more insight into the weapons.
No, but like, how like no even if you are only one, you main insect glaive, if I recall, right?
I main the insect glaive. In World, I started with the dual blades. I tried all of the weapons just to see what it was like, how they felt, and a lot of them just felt very slow to me, which is by design, you know. So I'm not bashing the weapons. I can tell that that's the way they were made. So I landed on the dual blades because I thought that it was like quick, it was fast, and I could do some pretty cool moves, and you know everything looked sick. And then I went back and I retried everything because my problem with the insect glaive was I just swung it around, and I was like, okay, it's fine, but it's a little slow. And when I really looked into it, and this is probably something I should be doing with all of the weapons, when I really looked into it and I was like, oh, okay, I have to absorb different extracts. You know, I have to send out my kinsect and absorb different extracts. I can zoom around in the air and launch myself around the air. Once I saw all of that stuff, I was like, okay, this is the weapon for me. This thing looks amazing. It just looks cool.
Yeah. I will say that this game, more than any other, encourages you. Like, it doesn't force you. I will say that. Unlike, again, earlier games, it doesn't force you to try different weapons for different monsters. But it does encourage it by just giving you all these skills and combinations for said skills. Like, for example, like a good example that I can think of, because I have always been more into switch axe, which I know you had a hard time with that one against an Argakuga.
Yeah, and again, I tried that, and I wonder if the problem was just I don't know the mechanics. I don't know what I was supposed to be doing with that weapon to do cool stuff. It probably looks super cool. I didn't really sit down and watch a video for it or anything to understand how to actually play the weapon.
Yeah. Again, like, once again, that's only applicable with the arena, which again I did not provide footage for that because I'm not interested in the arena. I've never been, but yeah, no, I don't like that when that sort of custom game where you're like, oh, certain stipulations, certain things you don't have control, because like I said, this game more than ever pushes you to like try, if not multiple weapons, variations of them, because I think the grinding in this game is lower in terms of materials. Like, you need way less stuff to make weapons of every kind compared to something like World, because although it still has some questionable choices, where like, oh, for this piece of armor, this Magna Malo weapon, you need pieces of this bird, and you're like, what the fuck does the bird have to do with this? I don't know.
It does seem like there are fewer. It feels like there are fewer rare things. You know.
Yeah.
A lot of the time when it's time to make a weapon, you've already got most of it, and maybe you only need one Magna Malo plate or beast gem or something like that. Whereas World did feel like I need to get 3 of those things that I can only get one of at a time, maybe 2. So there were a couple of instances where I was worried about gathering all of the materials I needed, and you get them pretty quick in this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember I had to kill like 20 Ratalos in the World just to get one plate. But here's the thing, it was the plate what got difficult because I had like 5 rubies and I'm like, I don't want this stuff. It's great, but I don't. It's not the one that I need.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that because, for example, if you are very into affinity, just like Flipnote mentioned, there is the Sword and Shield. There's a weapon that has 100% affinity by default.
Wow, that's actually really good.
Yeah. But I mainly go because, like I said, this game encourages you to like, okay, I'm gonna try multiple weapons. How about multiple variations of your weapon? Like, okay, you got this one with affinity. How about this one for the certain element, or this one that looks like Sailor Moon? Don't ask Solar. Like you have this multiple variations of your weapons, and the skill tree is way too accessible, so you can just go nuts and try whatever for the monster, and depending on the occasion. And I do appreciate it because, unlike previous games, like I said, it feels more creative freedom rather than you want to win, you need that weapon, you need that weakness, you need. But again, I don't know. And then
my biggest problem with that is there is still a lot of grinding that you have to do when you're trying to build the pieces of gear, because there's 4 or 5 pieces of gear. I'm less encouraged to make different gear sets. I'm less interested in building a set that is strong against dragon, a set that is strong against thunder, because it does feel like there's a lot of specific grinding, and especially stat tuning. Stat tuning is probably one of the bigger headaches, because you're balancing out so many different specific stats. This gear set has great stats if you're like a charge axe or something, but or charge blade, but it's nowhere near okay if you're gonna build an insect glaive. So you have to have full gear sets for all of these things. But then, in addition to the gear, you're balancing out certain shortcomings with decorations, with your talismans, with your weapon. Your weapon itself will have a bunch of stats. So I'm less like for insect glaive, I have a very strong affinity build. My affinity is like 7, I think. I think I have it maxed out to 7. That is a good stat for basically any enemy, because it just affects your critical rate. I make sure that if I need elemental weaknesses or elemental protection, I do that from my talismans and my weapon, because it's easier for me to swap those in and out than it is for me to swap all my gear, make a bunch of gear sets, balance all those stats. It just doesn't work well for me to try and do that. So I don't do as many gear sets as I do. I have a ton of different weapons, but one set of gear.
Yeah. Also, hey Lilac, I enjoy the building of different gear set builds, but it also depends on what I am aiming for. I love, and again, which actually brings a very interesting discussion, because World and Rise introduced what people call the meta in Monster Hunter, which is exactly that, like customizing your gear to have certain pieces of one kind of armor, and then certain decorations, and then a talisman that has it's all about that sort of combination, while previous games were all about full set. That's why something that I still what I still am getting used to, because I was always into I was taught that if I wanted certain tuning in my game, I needed to in my character, I needed to get the full set of a monster, like all 5 parts of Rajang, of Anjanat or Barat or whatever. Like, I needed the full stat, otherwise I will have no I wouldn't have anything, like no attack boost, no critical eye, no anything. Meanwhile, here everything is more on levels.
It's
you were
more
mentioning
about
that
balancing the different pieces than it is about. I mean, I have the gear set that I'm using now. It has 4 similar pieces, and the only bonus I'm getting for having 4 pieces of the same set of gear is all of my resistances go up by 2. That's basically irrelevant to like that. That's a minuscule increase considering I'm using 4 sets of 4 pieces of a specific set of gear. It's basically irrelevant. It just so happened, and I'm not even doing it on purpose so much as it just works out that gear set has a lot of the stats I'm looking for, so it just happens to be that way.
In my case, because of the update, which we'll keep on a bit of a spoiler, quote unquote, section, my gear right now has a lot of Kushala, Damascus, and 1 Agnamalo stuff. And so I have it with critical eye, but again, I only managed to increase it because of the talismans being RNG. Candy Crab on max, which is armor skill, to increase the sharpness of my weapon, so that it's just longer. And I used to have wide range to be a good support, but I replaced it for the sake of having critical eye at max. It was the first time I went out of my way to do custom, to customize my armor, and I can see the appeal, but I also feel like, oh my god, Capcom is notorious for sometimes expecting you to have certain things in order to make their games bearable, for lack of a better term. Lala, thanks for the follow. And because of that, I do feel like, I'm not so sure about the meta being a thing in a video game. I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh fan. The meta scares me.
The problem, the way that I heard this before, this was an issue that one of the first times I really understood the concept of a quote unquote best way to play the game, because that's basically what meta theoretically is, the best way to play the game, as some people would say. And one of the first times I experienced that, I heard a quote that was it always stuck with me, and it was, as long as people have calculators, there will be a quote unquote best way to play the game. As long as somebody is sitting there doing the numbers, there's always going to be a certain stat that works best for that player, for that class. There's always going to be an optimal way to play the game, and the balance there is how much do you lose by not doing that? What's you for Insect Glaive, and for some of the other ones, I would imagine affinity is your primary stat. It's one of the things you want to be going for. But if I want to focus on a couple other stats and my affinity is only going to be 4 instead of 7, how bad is that going to be for my character? Is it going to balance out with some of the other gains, or should I absolutely be going for affinity first and then hope that the other stats work out? That's the problem with meta, because meta is the optimal way to play the game, and if you're too hard into the meta, everything else feels like you're playing the game weak on purpose.
And in this case, to be fair, this game, unlike any other, has a better system with the talisman, because the talismans have always been RNG, but previous games were you get 1 or 2 talismans by doing missions. World was okay, give me your materials and then we'll see how it goes, and then we'll Meanwhile, this game does give you the melting pot a little bit easier by introducing certain tickets, and with that, I'll give you the floor, man, because yeah, you can get the tickets or just grind for materials for talismans easier with the new Rampage mode. Yeah,
Ugh.
I gotta give you the floor first because yeah, I know.
All right, so you want me to talk about the Rampage mode? My favorite mode in the game is what you're saying.
Said not Uncle Greg.
Yeah, definitely not me. So the Rampage mode is something I don't enjoy. I do not like this. I feel like it. I feel like at some point somebody decided to drop a tower defense game into my action game, and I don't hate tower defense. It just I don't like its placement here. You're forcing me to play the game a certain way, and I'm not a big fan of it. I'll tell you that what I like the most about the Rampage mode, and this is, if you're familiar with the Rampage mode, you know exactly what I'm going to say, which is when the signal flare goes off and you can fight the monsters. I would rather it
yeah, the
be-
counter.
Yeah, the counter with counter signal is what it's called. I would rather I be able to do that all the time, and I fight wave after wave of strong monster, as opposed to this setting everything up, watching it level, to, actively actively changing them out, swapping them, replacing them. Like that to me is just not very fun. I would rather just fight all of the monsters head on. As far as World, because World had that, I forget what it was called with World. It was like the giant.
Magdaros, yeah.
What was it? What was the mode called?
The Sora Magdaros, that was the monster, yeah.
Yeah. So that was a similar thing where you would go, and the thing I liked about that was that it was already set up. I was going from weapon to weapon. I was shooting it. I was going down to the boat, and I was trying to shoot the Dragonator or whatever it was called. Like, I didn't have to worry about doing the setup. I just had to perform the actions, and it was a different action. I still would have rather faced the monster head on, but Thora Magdaros, I think it was called, was very large, and I couldn't hit him. So I didn't mind that. But I liked that it was already set up, and I like strategy games. So I like, I've played tower defense games, and I enjoy it, but that is because that's what the game is designed around, and it just doesn't vibe with me well in this game. I don't know why. I just don't like it here.
Yeah, and trust me, first of all, like I said, there's a reason why the catchphrase of the show is we're all right and wrong at the same time. Because again, I know some people can be quite something. I'm watching you all. I know you're there. I know you're. But no, I'm kidding. I love you all. With that said, I grew on the Rampage because Flip, I think it was Dragoon mentioned that the game that World started the whole the kind of Rampage stuff. I will go even way with the second game, because you always have that whole protect the area. Like Sora Magdaros had a time limit. Like the more he keeps destroying, the less time you get. Monster Hunter Tri-Hatch and Moran. Like the only difference here is that now you're fighting regular monsters. Like you're repelling them. While previous games were until World were all about the giant one, the giant monster that's taller than a mountain and whatever.
Yeah, it was a monster unique to that mode.
Yeah, it was exclusive to that, or to a certain degree that you needed to be in that way, and not to. And yeah, it is a tone shift, Lilac, but it's not necessarily that different to how Monster Hunter has always been. With that said, it was one mission. It was always one or two monsters. I think World had 3. But
yeah,
it was only
it was a couple. It was a few times, and in this I would probably say I had to do it 6 or 7 times, like mandatory. And then it's just stale. I just like it.
No, it's okay. And hell, I will even dare to say, like, no, it in this case, it's the fact that it's a mandatory thing, unless you want to, like, run out of materials for the melting pot, so you can get those proper stat bonuses that you want, so you can have your reload combo of gear. I'd say being able to set it up keeps it from being and I will say, Dragoon, it does get stale, but when it gets stale, it's a good thing, because now you have your strategy. The only reason why I grew onto that was because I learned the patterns, so it stopped being that exciting in the moment kind of thing that Monster Hunter is used to have with these missions, and became this, okay, I'm gonna place the monsters here. Like, it became a play of chess, where, like, you have a strategy from the beginning and you keep going with that one until the end, instead of something as creative freedom as Monster Hunter, especially this game of all things. So it does have that change of tone from the creativity. Like, you go from beating monsters to death to only pushing them back, with only one mission that I genuinely loved. But again, like, the Rampage are harmless until you start getting into that whole meta element of starting to grind, because you will need those tickets for the melting pot, rather than having to forge a piece of equipment that you cannot do anymore because you gave all your materials to the pot. Which by that point, like, oh fuck, I just made it more difficult to myself. A little bit back into the gameplay with what did you think of the way the game handled, or just how it felt to play the older monsters that you got to play, like from World and all, like how do you feel the gameplay changed when fighting these monsters?
I don't think it changed a whole lot. I mean, I knew, as far as an insect glaive player, when you have to hit the monsters with the insect in order to get certain extracts, I knew exactly where to hit the monsters. I knew that, red extract came from here, white came from here, orange came from here, and that was pretty locked in. You go for the tail and you try and cut the tail off. You hit them in the head and you stun them a little bit and you do more damage. And certain monsters can't get hurt. They have higher defenses in certain parts of their body. A lot of that was very much the same. So as far as fighting the old monsters, it was all very familiar. So it was easy to get back into. And not to mention the fact that, we talked earlier about the village quest. That made it a little bit easier, as you're reacclimating yourself to how to play the game, especially for new players who don't know how to play the game. It was a lot easier to become reaccustomed to, especially with the new changes, with the addition of the bug thingy, with the wire bug, which is now also a part of your combat. So it was familiar enough to not feel like you're learning how to drive all over again, but now you're just driving a different vehicle. So it was good. It was good. It was a good transition from one game into the next game.
For me, to be fair, like, this is the closest Monster Hunter fans get to Smash Bros. Kind of excitement, because and again, this is where we're gonna start having that sort of distance. This game starts bringing back some elements of other monsters, because World, for multiple reasons, given the change of formula, change of everything, they kept it safe with the wyverns and like, hell, as I'm showing on screen, one of the monsters was just a T-Rex with a nose problem. And that was the original stuff from World. Meanwhile, this game brings back Leviathans, brings back just different. It just brings back some of the varieties that other games tend to have, especially with insects and the insects are always harder to develop since those are completely new. You don't have a preset for a different kind of insect. But here, like we're bringing back some monsters from multiple generations, while keeping them. I will say, like, some of them had a lot of different changes that you may not notice, but if you have been in the series at the very least, like me would try, like it feels nostalgic to go back and seeing, like, oh, we're bringing back some variety with the kind of monsters that we're fighting and their gimmicks, because, like I mentioned, you get tired of the same wyvern with wings that spits something after a while, like, and you wish to have something different. And yeah, like Dragoon, we all hate and love the Spider Queen. Yeah, I think that's as far as I can kind of go with that part. But what did you think of the newer ones? Like the one that you can tell from, at least with this comparison, World to Rise. Like, what do you think of the new monsters and how they behave and all?
I'm gonna be honest with you. As somebody who only started in World, I don't know what's new and what is old that came back. You know what I mean? Like, I know that there are some monsters that I don't remember fighting in World, but apparently, like, some of them. What's the one that looks like a panther, like an angry panther? Nargacuga.
Oh well, yeah, Nargacuga.
The Nargacuga. That thing looked awesome. Like, I would get a tattoo of that thing. It looks incredible. Apparently, is that an old monster?
Nargacuga is an old one. I don't know if you're also talking about, but the other one that looks more like a panther, or more like a samurai tiger, like the Magna Malo. That's the flagship for this game. Like, what do you think of that one?
And then there's the one that looks like the saber-toothed tiger, with wings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that one was called.
Flip, don't mention, like, I like the blind creepy monster. That's Kesu, and no, that he's a kind of an original monster, like from the first game. But yeah,
It's not the tiger. No, the Tigrex is the one that is like the striped dinosaur.
Yeah.
Right? Am I right?
Yeah. The one that when it screams, it hurts you. Is the one that wins.
That sounds terrifying.
Yeah, the Tigrex is very annoying. I hate that. The Barioth. Is that the Barioth?
More annoying than anything, yeah.
Okay.
The Barioth is the one that that was like a saber tiger, like saber teeth tiger.
That's the one. Okay, so like that one, I don't remember fighting in World, and so but I don't know if that's a new monster or just a returning monster. Lilac in the chat says that Nargacuga was an Iceborne, which I didn't play through. I only played through Vanilla World. I don't know if the Nargacuga existed before Iceborne. I don't know if that was new to Iceborne, but for Rise, it's new to me. You know, it's like a rerun of a TV show. It's new to me.
Yeah, no, don't worry.
Yeah, so I don't know what's brand new. What monsters are brand new to Rise? Are there any other than because the Wind Spirit Ibushi and stuff like there's the one world, right?
Yeah, there's the one that looks like there's the Ghost Harak, the bear that suddenly turns ice into a fucking sword in its hands, and you're like, whoa, that's not fair. I am the one with the weapon. You're the giant monster. You're the giant.
So the Gosarog is a new monster. That's like completely new, never been in another game.
Yeah. Then there's also the Subnankat, the one that sleeps you and kind of slides through the water. Then there's then there's the Shaten, like the monkey.
Oh yeah. That's the stupid thing with the tail that gets on his tail and throws fruit at you.
And the Fancy Bear Agnosom, yeah, that one is also
That's-
new Dragoon.
What about the
and yeah,
spider?
like the spider is new, and like I said, like they brought back those kind of monsters, like as well as the Tranodon, the Toro looking one.
Okay.
And what do you think of those? Like just going by name, just go.
The brand new monsters are great. There's a lot of variety between them. As long as they don't have, I'll tell you what I hate the most is the ones that have parts of the body that are too hard to hit. That always pisses me off, man. I can't stand what's the Baroth, the one that has like the really hard head, and that's they're older monsters.
I'm gonna be all of it because yeah, the Baroth is just the one that just likes to running towards you and has a bit of a crater for head. Instead of like.
There's that one.
I did not record footage for that one because.
Go ahead.
That has the Diablos, you mean?
No. It's like a big rock monster. Like the top half of it is like solid rock.
Oh yeah, the Basarios, yeah.
Okay, that's what that is. Right. Yeah, those are the ones I hate. But the new monsters are fantastic.
Is the
like I will say.
Sorry, did you?
Wait, what?
I was
you
going
go.
to say, is the Bizarrios like with its rock, like upper half, like is it like one of those monsters where if you hit it on that area, your blade just bounces off?
Yeah, and
it'll unless
and
you're
almost everything.
I think if you have white sharpness, you can cut through it. I think.
White
me on that.
White sharpness or Mind's Eye, which just negates the deflection no matter what.
Okay. Which I mean, you don't want to build the whole thing just to fight that one monster, unless you really, really hate that monster.
No, I get you. And I'm gonna express the saltiness a little bit. I did not record footage for the Bariat because I cut it twice, and I fainted twice, and I'm just like, oh fuck this, I'm not recording this. Fuck you.
How you get owned live?
I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I mean that's actually one of the reasons I like the insect glaive is because when you're jumping through the air and you're doing so there's like a windmill attack that you fly through the air and you spin the blade around. That if you hit something that you can't damage, you'll still slice through it. You just won't do any damage. So like you mentioned how you would sort of dink off of the body parts that you can't hit. That won't happen with the insect glaive. Mm-hmm. So what you'll end up doing is you'll end up losing a little bit of sharpness, but you'll still fly. It won't cancel your jump or anything. So I actually really like that. That's one of the reasons I like the insect glaive so much.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. Also, Dragoon Knight, the bullets don't bounce like when you use the bow or anything like that, but there is still the whole damage calculation. Like some areas will hurt more than others. Like the weakness spot, better said. Flip note, this conversation is not that big for those that are just starting with Rise or that started with World as well. But it's important to mention this because, like I said, World had very they had very specific kinds of body types for the monsters. So I do want to mention there is a bigger variety on the type of monster and their aesthetics and everything. But right now that it's on screen, what do you think of Magna Malo?
I like it. I actually really enjoyed that fight. It's a very active fight. There's there's not a lot of downtime. You gotta be really up. And when you think you're kind of out of range, you're not out of range. That was a very fun fight. There was another monster later, which I think you wanted to wait, so we'll talk about it later. But that Magna Malo was like training for a later monster. And I don't know if you know exactly what monster I'm talking about, but it's a very fun, energetic fight, which I complained earlier about a lot of the weapons feeling very slow, which leads to a slower style of gameplay. And when I fight the Magnum Aloe, I can't help but wonder, maybe I should be trying some of these other weapons, because especially when you look at the weapons like the hammer, where it looks like not only does the weapon swing itself slow, but it looks like your mobility is low. I'm amazed that people are able to fight this thing, because I was wire bugging. Was that?
No, you finished. My bad.
I was gonna say, when I was fighting the Magnum Aloe, especially first, I'm wire bugging. I'm flipping all over the place. I'm leaping into the air because you can vault with the insect glaive. I'm vaulting into the air and then wire bugging away because I'm trying to get out of range, and I'm using all of my mobility, and it makes me wonder with some of these other weapons, how are you able to be so mobile that you're not just getting rolled on every 3 seconds? With a hammer, for instance, how are you able to be so mobile with that weapon that you're not getting rolled on every 3 seconds?
I will say, the hammer does have the chance, like Dragoon mentioned, that you can hit every area with these. You can kind of stun them a little bit more often than with other weapons, to just knock them down. But also, this is where the wire bug in terms of the abilities also becomes a big deal, because, for example, with the hammer, if you use the wire bug, you're just flying and spinning all over the place. You're just a constant hit bug for the monster. So it does come with the fact, okay, a lot more, you're gonna get hit a lot more, but you're compensating with bigger attacks and more chances to stun the monster. So there is a pro and a con from each weapon, and it does become into same with the quote unquote meta. What is your style? What are gonna be your priorities? What's gonna be the thing that you want to do? And with that's also on screen. What did you think of the wyvern riding?
The wyvern riding. I like it. I am a big fan of it. One thing that I have a problem with is that it seems like you can only really do it once per fight. When I'll attack the monster, and it'll pop up, and I'll be able to do it, and I'll more than likely kill the monster. I'll never get to do it again with the monster. So I wonder if that's by design, or if you're just killing the monster too fast. Are you not intended to be able to ride the monster more than once?
There are some particular missions where that is not the case. There are some missions where that's not the case. I'll keep that for spoilers. But I think also with patches, the major thing that I noticed is that you can only ride a monster one time, or at least there needs to be a cooldown for it. At least but let's say that you have a Rathalos and a Ragnar Kadachi, you can ride the two of them one time at least, one ride per monster.
Yeah, they'll when one monster attacks the other one, it will become rideable. But then that'll be your time to ride, which is fine. It's not something that I expect to do 5 or 6 times. My only problem is that you only get to do one thing with it. You either, if you're alone, you slam it into the wall until it falls down, or if you're with another monster, you fight the other monster. So you're kind of, they force you to do one or the other, which is not, I don't expect it to be a massive part of the game, but I do like how it's implemented. I do enjoy moving the monster around a little bit, and one of the things I like the most about it is that when you're fighting against another monster, it will auto target for you. So I'm not trying to line up my attacks. I'm hitting the attack button, and the monster's turning around and facing the other monster, especially when you do the punishing move, it automatically targets the other monster. So I'm not whiffing shots, and I'm pissed off because I'm wasting my opportunity.
Dragoon, for a second, like he mentioned, they mentioned that you can do it multiple times, but there is a bit of a gag build, like
Okay.
you a cooldown, better said. And he said you refill
Okay.
the mounting gauge by doing silk attacks, but for a second I read slick, and I'm like, wow, the game's gonna be that critic. Like I need to be stylish to do it first.
I mean, that's why you use the insect glaive, because it's all style.
Yeah, well, that's fair. Like, and with that, like, but with the wyvern riding, I'm gonna say like, you're mounting the Rajang, which again is an old monster. Mounting the Rajang is the most OP thing you can do, because one thing that the game doesn't tell you is that depending on your positioning, there are certain gauge. Well, there are certain attacks. Like if you just press A or X, they will do a specific one. If you do it directional, left and right, they will do another one. Same with up, same with down.
I'll be honest, I did not know that.
And with that, I will say, if you mount right the Rajang and do down A, it will do the fucking Kamehameha.
Yeah, see, okay.
So you can
I thought it only did that when the other monster was too far away. I didn't know that you can actually control that through like down A. Oh.
Yeah, no, look, you can constantly do that. So I'm just like, all right, you're done. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, because that's a crazy attack. I mean, that's the big Saiyan monster.
Yeah.
Because it looks like a big Saiyan.
Yeah. Look, oh, you managed to mount it like 3 times. I managed to do it twice, but for a certain monster, like only with certain types.
Yeah, see, I never managed to ride a monster more than once in the battle. I don't think I've ever managed to do it more than once.
Well, with that, I will say right now, people, because we're gonna start jumping into those elements. Spoilers from here on out. It's Monster Hunter. The story is not that big of a deal or anything, but just to let you guys know that again, we're gonna start jumping a little bit into that kind of stuff. So once again, you have been told. And before I jump exactly into those, yeah, I know. Don't worry. I want to start with the Apex monsters, with the which are technically from 4. Like the term itself has been from 4. Monster fights also fill the mouth G faster. You can also quick trigger it. Okay, I get you. Don't worry. You like the Apex are pretty much like monster zombie tanks. That's the word I always use for those.
Yeah,
like
they're
because
like
they don't stop. Like because they don't stop. They're constantly attacking. They're constantly aggressive, and you can knock them down, but they're not gonna get tired. Yeah, I was gonna get to, and they're supposed to be from a certain virus called the Frenzy virus. So, again, I'm not gonna get too much into it, but I think there. Yeah, and the name itself is not just something that they pulled out of their asses. At least not this time.
Okay.
Because World.
I thought these were monsters that enjoyed playing Apex Legends.
Oh yeah, no, don't worry. And they're coming out because they're all salty because they lost, and they're all salty.
You know,
I just lost 5 matches in a row. Oh.
I mean, they'd probably be a lot less angry if they played Warzone, but you know, that's each their own.
No, yeah, I tell you that. Yeah, that's where I was going, Dragoon. there's a specific monster that creates this virus. I'm just gonna say the name, Gormagala. You can look it up if you want to, because again, it's not that meaningful in this conversation. I'm just saying, like, I hope that becomes part of the update, which I'll get into that in a bit. What did you think of the Apex monster? Like, just in normal quests, because those are the ones that you have played the most. Those are the ones.
Well, I think it should be mentioned first is that the Apex monsters were only in the Rampages. So originally,
yeah, but I don't want to open that can again.
You could not fight them in the regular modes, which bummed me out because I actually do like the Apex monsters. I do like the added difficulty. I do like the extra spin on, here's a Mizutsune, and you've killed these a dozen times. All of a sudden, here comes one that you now can't kill. And it's they're very reminiscent. You mentioned like they keep attacking. It kind of makes all of the monsters kind of like the Magna Mallow, where it's a very energetic fight, and there's a lot of activity. You have to be more active and more mobile than ever. And it bothered me that they were locked to the Rampage mode because I don't like the Rampage modes. So now I think you have to kill them in the Rampage, and then you'll be able to fight them as a regular quest. That's great.
Yeah, I think so.
I love that. I think that's fantastic.
Because that was... You and I had a weird opposite situation where, because again, I did hunt these fuckers because they give you the best tickets in the game. But as I was doing the update stuff, I could not unlock them until I did the other stuff first. So it was just weird that the conditions to get them were just all over the place, because I needed to do the high rank and you needed to do both. So again, it was a weird thing to unlock them, but nothing really that's that insane on its own. And with that, I also think like the major thing for me of the Apex monsters is that they give me hope that the updates will bring what's the word? That they will bring certain characters, certain monsters versus.
Okay, so you're hoping for different monsters more related to the Apex styling. What's that? Like that monster that you mentioned?
Like that one monster, because that one monster is one of the best fights in the series, and because of that, you're okay. And I do have hope for that, because even though they behave differently, different than how they did in 4, those World had the Arc Temper, if you recall, where just a monster that hits harder and goes wilder, or the Extreme Behemoth and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, they're always known, Capcom, the developers are known for just bringing random names. Well, not random, but this generation has this name, this generation has this one. There are always variations of the names. So I do have hope just for the fact that they don't just repeat the names or the styles of the monsters. That is majorly why. That is and with that, you mentioned that part of how you can hunt them now in regular quests. What do you think of the way they are doing things? Just overall, I'm gonna go with that conversation of the game having constant updates and added content for free, of course.
For now,
as the months go on.
I think that's great. I like the constant updates as opposed to one big dump of content every 6 months or so. I do like the idea of an active service. Not a game as a service per se, but just as an active sort of, like I said, I'm already past the point where I've played all of the content in the DLC. So now if I wanted to take a break, I could. and I could come back at the end of the month they're supposed to be doing the next update, and then I could come back then. And these are minor updates compared to so I don't know if you want to talk about the end of the story, but the end of the story hints a new area, hints a new, a sort of new direction that the village might be going in, and that's going to feel like a major update. So I like that we're getting the smaller updates. These little extra monsters are done. You're doing your thing, and then hey, these new monsters showed up, or these new Apex versions of monsters you already know of are showing up, or because these new monsters are here, we now know how to make these new pieces of gear. So now you find yourself farming the same areas that you knew before and the same monsters you knew before, but now you're going for different things. So without a major update and a major shake up to the game, there's new things for you to do. So I like that. I like when they add this stuff slowly but surely over time. It keeps you invested in the game for longer.
For me, on one hand, again, this is a bit of a call out to our current state of the internet, where I think Lani Petor said it best. Like, the game you buy today is not the game you're gonna have in a year from now. And sometimes for the best, sometimes for the worst. Like, sometimes you get Monster Hunter stuff. Other times says the story and Crash Team Racing. Other times, just to keep it on low levels. But because of that, I also feel like doing this kind of stuff, while I do appreciate it, it does work as a call out for the current state of how we handle game journalism. And yeah, we're gonna get weird, people. I don't care. This is the gray line, but by now, where you have all of these reviews that have said like, oh, you only have this amount of monsters, this amount of things, and all of those reviews, especially the ones that say that the story is not even finished, it just stops, are gonna get outdated in next coming weeks, if not already, because they already have other stuff. So again, I've always been and Greg knows it more than anyone, that I've always been into the idea that we need to adapt to the times, and to also start normalizing this thing, because it's not exactly new. Not just for Monster Hunter, but also in gaming. Any Warcraft player knows that updates are a common thing, and patches and all with games. Or any MMO player, better said, or any MMO.
I'd argue that it's a bit different, because when you talk about something like an MMO, this is an ongoing service. This is the difference between games as a service and updates to a game you already played. There's a difference between buying a game for $60 and getting a bunch of free updates, as opposed to something like Warcraft, World of Warcraft, where you're paying a monthly fee for the game, so you better be getting updates. I would hate to pay a monthly fee for the game, and then the first update I get is 2 years later when the next expansion comes out. If I'm paying all this money, I do want the game to be a service that is constantly getting updates. The thing that I think that reviews get wrong, and you're right, they do need to adjust how they do this. And I think a lot of reviewers are starting to include this in their reviews of these kinds of games, is that it's known that this is going to get updated. Nobody who is familiar with Monster Hunter should have bought this game thinking, is that it? Everybody should have known, if you're a Monster Hunter fan, that that's it for now. And very quickly, you're going to get extra monsters. You're going to get something else to do. There's going to be new gear. There's going to be updates. This is something that I think a lot of people expected. So when you watch a review, if a reviewer says, I can't believe this is all you get, they're clearly not familiar with this franchise in particular. And with games as they are now, you mentioned it already that a lot of games in some way, for better or worse, do this sort of thing. So I think that speaks more to reviewing as it does to reviews of this game in particular. Reviewing itself needs to evolve into an era where we acknowledge that when you pay $60 for a game, you need to review that immediate experience with the understanding that it is not going to be the same thing later on. That does not give companies a right to review. And this is off topic. We're not. I won't drag you into this direction, but
trust me, I want to. I'm completely ready for this.
That does not give companies the right to release broken games. That does not give companies the right to cut games up into pieces, sell you the first piece for $60, and then sell you the rest as DLC. It does not give them the right to do that. But companies are well within their right, and it's very fun for them to give you what feels like a complete $60 experience and then release extra stuff as time goes on. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy knowing that I got a complete experience for $60, and I'm also going to keep getting updates for a little while.
I mean, there's always the fact that you still need to make a good first impression for people to be interested in whatever you're trying to create. So like it is important to it doesn't matter if you're promising to be No Man's Sky 2021 if you're No Man's Sky 2017, which was a fucking mess. Which was like the game may be great now, but the first impression just makes it harder for people to get into it. Well, with that said, you go.
What hurt No Man's Sky? I think what hurt No Man's Sky the worst. Let's say No Man's Sky 2 comes out and they do the same thing. It is this not necessarily bare bones, because my understanding was that there was a lot to do in No Man's Sky, but they come out with No Man's Sky 2. There's a good amount of stuff to do, and there's going to be a lot more stuff later. There's going to be a lot of updates and stuff. What would help that game out is that No Man's Sky 1 has already done it. We already have experienced that game. We understand how long it's going to take for updates to come out. What hurt No Man's Sky the worst is that it was a brand new franchise, and no one understood that that's what it was going to do. It was not marketed as a game as a service. It was marketed as, you go to the store, you pay $60, you get this full experience. And that was not what it feels like. That was never what the game was designed to be. Monster Hunter is something that at this point we understand there's going to be DLC. There are going to be updates. Splatoon 3. When Splatoon 3 comes out, nobody should expect I'm getting I'm getting the whole thing day one. You're not. You're definitely going to buy a game that has a lot to do and is going to have more to do. And we expect that from Splatoon. We expect that from Monster Hunter. No Man's Sky hurt because nobody knew what to expect. And to be honest, I didn't feel like they were very forthcoming with that. It was not clear to me that was going to be a game that got constant updates. I think that people would have handled it better if they had done that. Because most people will tell you now that No Man's Sky at the state that it's in now is fantastic. It's a terrific experience with a lot of variety to it. That's because it had time to grow that way, which everybody would have been willing to give it if we knew that was what you were going to get. But they didn't make it seem that way.
It's not just No Man's Sky. The examples that I can bring, like GT. I bet you I can give you my both nuts that GTA Online today is nowhere near the same as GTA Online in 2015.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that you can play it to begin with. The fact that
without even playing GTA, I can tell you that given how, I mean, GTA, what is it, 5? Is that the one that's online that there's a ton of stuff to it? That game's been released on system since the PS3, right? Wasn't that originally a PS3 game?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way that the online experience now is the same online experience that you got 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. No, and
Yeah.
again with GTA, it's a little awkward because GTA is not known for downloadable updates, but it is known for extra versions. It is known for, there's GTA 3 and then there's GTA Vice City, which felt like an extra part of 3, and we knew that there were going
Vice
to be
City
changes.
stories.
Yeah, Vice City stories, back then it was not easy. It was not as easy for them to do DLC as it is now. So that's sort of what we expect now. And yeah, it's not the same experience. But what I was saying with that was that, with GTA, we had already, even GTA 1. If anybody, I don't know if you guys ever played the very first Grand Theft Auto. Did you guys ever play that game?
I tried a little bit of it. I was kind of surprised about how
it's wildly different.
Yeah.
It's wildly different. It is a top-down, like a pixelated game. It is unbelievably different. That game had bonus content.
Oh, really?
That game, yeah. So the way they did it on PS1 was you got GTA, and then what you got was GTA London Pack, which was another disc that they sold separately. You had to have your first GTA loaded up, and then there was a point where you would take it out and you would put in your London Pack, and then that was the London update to GTA 1, which is something that nowadays we would just get as DLC, as a DLC pack or a different game mode or something. So GTA right from the beginning was known for, we are going to add extra content to the game you already know. So when you talk about GTA 5 and when you talk about GTA 6, whenever that finally happens, everybody knows that you're going to pay $60 for the game and you're going to get a bunch of updates. That's not a surprise to anybody.
Yeah.
And I think even to pair it kind of with what you were saying, Greg, and bringing it a bit closer to something that is that with Modern Warfare and Warzone and everything, they the Modern Warfare and Cold War and everything in Warzone are completely different now than how it launched, especially with all the operators that you can use now compared to back then, and also the events and the stuff to do.
I wonder, and this is something you could tell me because I actually only play Warzone. I don't play Modern Warfare. I don't play Cold War. The story modes, the actual games themselves, the actual Modern Warfare and Cold War, outside of the multiplayer, they're not so different, right? They're not adding a bunch of stories and stuff. That's a beginning to end, and then that's it. It's the multiplayer that evolves over time. It's that where they rotate maps out of multiplayer. They do a lot of weapon balancing and swapping weapons and stuff in Warzone. But the base game itself is still the same game, right?
Yeah.
I know that Cold War was a little more different than others, but
Cold War is
that's as far as I can go. I know
Cold War is a little bit different with updates, given the fact that Treyarch made it so therefore they include the zombies mode, and so they give updates of releasing new maps, releasing new things involving the zombie modes as well. So it's basically the core multiplayer modes they do give frequent updates for. So I guess maybe it not too similar to how it's done for Monster Hunter, since Monster Hunter as a whole, the whole package, continues to update over time. Meanwhile, with Call of Duty, it's just the multiplayer and everything. But,
well, no, it's a bit different because I think the important thing there to understand is as far as the difference is that you're talking about story mode versus extra modes, and the Monster Hunter story mode doesn't seem to get a lot of updates. There's a couple of extra missions that maybe tie into the story. But from beginning to end, the story mode doesn't seem to change unless there's a big DLC where you might have to pay for it or something. The extra, like for instance, this extra content that we just got on this last patch, and probably for the next one, is basically extra monsters, extra. There are no locale differences. There were not new weapon sets other than the weapon sets that were tied to the new monsters. So you're not getting with these updates, you're not getting a massive story shakeup. You're getting content changes to I think I think it is comparable to something like Modern Warfare and Warzone. Is that Monster Hunter, the majority of the game, as much as people like to get through the story mode, the reality is when you get through the story mode, now you start the real game.
Yeah.
Now you have access to all of the weapon sets, all of the monsters. Now you're getting into what I would call the meat and potatoes of the game, which is the bulk of it.
And to be fair, because I want to make to our comments. First of all, like Flipnote asked that if that whole thing GTA did, was that also in the GBA version? Or in the GB version of the Game Boy?
I don't believe so. I think the GBA version was just GTA, and then that was it. I don't think there was anything extra because it's difficult to do with the cartridge, whereas with the disc, with the disc you can open up the disc while the game is running and then put the next disc in there. And there were a few games that did that. I think Metal Gear had something called the VR missions.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what that was. That was just an extra content disc. So you would load up your game and
which had Rathalos, I think.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Rathalos was in VR missions. And yeah, so PlayStation was one of the first times I really, really remember that happening. But yeah, the Game Boy I don't think had anything like they would have had to just release a whole new game. But then I don't think they ever did a London pack GTA game. Yeah, if you're not familiar with GTA 1 and 2, I would highly recommend you go and look at them just so you can see how wildly different the kind of game it is. And then 3 was where it started with the 3D and it got into what we're a little bit more familiar with.
And Dragoon mentioned that to be fair, some of the games that you mentioned were not supposed to be fixed like a live server. They just became that way because they had to keep fixing it. The argument, at least here, like I mentioned to Dragoon, is that the problem or the reason why we started this conversation was that, okay, we know that, but a lot of people don't know that because all they did was follow the reviews. All they did was follow Angry Joe saying that the game was garbage because that's what he's best at. I'm sorry, and they called it a day. Like there are many games have we seen that these got lost because they had a very poor start or very poor reception, and later on they became amazing and some of the best games of all time. And in the case of Monster Hunter, I always prefer this current direction because keep in mind, for those that don't know, before the updates, this was a Capcom game in all of its glory.
I see what Dragoon is saying.
That, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm just saying Dragoon is saying specifically for No Man's Sky that it didn't mean to be that. It sort of became that because they had to make changes and they had to add stuff. But what I would say, Dragoon, to that is if people liked it at first, do you think that none of that stuff would have come out? That none of the changes would have come out? Because the big complaint that I heard about No Man's Sky in the beginning was that there was just not a lot to it. Not that it was overly difficult or it wasn't balanced correctly, but there wasn't a lot to it. It seems like the plan was for them to add a bunch of content. If the game was that bare bones, it feels like the plan was to add a bunch of content. And they made it feel like you were going to get a whole bunch of stuff at the beginning. And people went, I mean, we talked about Splatoon. When Splatoon first came out, the reviewers were were very. I thought they were very fair in one of their complaints. Because I am a big Splatoon fan. There were only like 4 or 5 maps in that game, and that was a big complaint that a lot of people had, that there were only 4 or 5 maps. And for $60 with a story mode that basically feels tacked on. Again, Splatoon is one of those games where the single player story mode is not the bulk of the game.
It doesn't.
The reviewers were very justified. It doesn't really matter. The reviewers were very justified in saying that at this point you're paying $60 for a game that only has 5 maps. But Splatoon, again, because we already knew that Splatoon was the kind of game that gets updated, most of the reviews that I saw were very quick to say it may not be worth it right now. Give it time and wait for more stuff to come out, and then we'll see then if they're releasing things fast enough, will it be worth your $60? Nobody knew to say that about No Man's Sky, even though it's clear that was the plan. I mean, the fact that they had a bunch of stuff on deck to release is very clear that their plan was to release stuff regularly. But I don't ever remember seeing them say that. I don't ever remember seeing in print or seeing in interviews or anything, them saying, when you buy this game, there's this big experience and we're going to update it regularly. Like, I don't remember them saying that. So if they did, I apologize. I just didn't see it.
Yeah, the fallout with like No Man's Sky was just mainly, I mean, at least I didn't follow it all that much, but I did see when it first premiered and everything, and sort of here and there stuff up until release. The main thing that like just had people big fallout with it is that, I guess from the premieres and of what was shown at like all the E3 stuff of in-engine stuff, like it showed like big armadas and like huge different like varieties of places and scenarios, and when it released,
pretty much what we have today.
Yeah, and that's what we have today now. But like when it released, it was lacking there. So I guess like some people probably felt as if it was falsely advertised, or I mean, not that it's falsely advertised, is that it's that they made it feel like that was going to be there from the beginning. They at no point do I remember them saying, coming soon we'll have this, eventually you'll be able to do this. They made it feel like you were going to be able to do that from the beginning, so when you didn't, people were wondering, where is this experience? It would have helped them if they would have said up front early on that eventually these things are going to be coming. Right now, this is what you're going to get, and then later on we'll expand it more, an ever-growing DLC pattern or something, just something to let us know that. And again, when it comes to Monster Hunter and Splatoon and stuff, we already expect that. We just didn't know that was what we were supposed to expect for No Man's Sky, because they didn't make it very clear in the beginning. Mm-hmm. When No Man's Sky 2 comes out, we're going to know. We're going to know that when you buy the game, you're going to get a relatively decent experience, but it may end up feeling a bit bare bones until later. And I don't expect the reviewers to come back every once in a while and say, all right, it's time for our 6-month review of No Man's Sky. What I expect them to say is, this is what the game looks like now. This is what you get now for your $60. But keep an eye on this game, because it will evolve. If people had felt that way with No Man's Sky, they would have thought, all right, I'll keep an eye on it and I'll take a look at it later on. For right now, maybe it's not for me. I just wrote, I think most people wrote it off.
I will dare to say, actually, I agree with what you're saying, but also don't. Let me explain. Because like some people say like, oh, you can't expect reviewers to like do that, and you're like, maybe not a reviewer, but someone supposed to be called gaming journalist. I kind of do, because that's their job. I'm sorry. I will much rather them doing that rather than keep doing posts on memes that haven't aged very well of Dragon Ball Z on their websites. Like, what the fuck? like I do expect them to cover. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like, I'm just saying that in this case, like we live in an era where for a lot of people, including myself, like those jobs are what we want. Like we want to like have that for a living, and especially myself, who went to college to study this thing. I learned from the beginning that if I'm gonna do this job, I'm gonna do it well, and so that's why I do hate when people say, "Oh, you shouldn't be good at video games to do a review." Like, no, shut the fuck up. I'm sorry. No,
I mean that
I'm gonna call you out right there. Yeah.
That's the issue.
And also,
you have to be good at the game. You have to be able to. If I tried to do a sports review, if I tried to do a review on sports equipment, and I told you that I don't know how to play sports, would you really care? If I was a car salesman and you asked me, you showed up to my dealership and said, "Could you tell me about this car?" And then I told you, "Oh, I don't even have a license." How much would you pay attention? How valid would you find my opinion of that car to be? If I told you it handles like a dream, I would know I can't drive it. You wouldn't really, right? You wouldn't really put a lot of stock in my opinion. So you kind of do have to be. You don't have to be the best. Nobody's saying to be to review a game you have to be a world champion, but you have to be competent. Maybe if you want to review Cuphead, you have to get over that first wall in the tutorial. Sorry.
Yep.
I know. Especially because Dragoon brings up a good point. Like, are you gonna rebut and say I still don't like it, but it's better? Like, no, that's fair, but that's the thing. Those journalists don't just say that they don't like it. They are the ones that go out of their way to say this thing is bad, like just set in stone. This thing is bad. Don't play or sorry, like I no mean punches. Wait for a price drop. You're like you can be subjective and also say that. Like that's my train of thought sometimes. Like especially when at the very least, if you're honest to God, believing that you don't have to be good at a game to make a review about it.
I mean, as far as that, sort of like what I was saying earlier, I think it's important to acknowledge that a game is going to get updated. There's nothing wrong with playing a game and saying, at the beginning for $60, you're not getting a great deal. You're not getting a great value for the money that you're spending. I think it's just important to acknowledge that certain games, if they're going to get updates. Like I said with Splatoon 2, a lot of the reviews that I watched said they didn't think it was worth it because you only had 5 maps and a limited amount of weapons, but Splatoon is known for constant updates, so keep an eye on it. That's all I want the reviewer to say. I don't need them to pop in every month and tell me how the game is going. That's what I have streams for. That's what I have YouTube videos for. That's what updates from the companies on Twitter is for. They'll tell me when the games are getting updated, and then I can go and watch a stream and judge for myself. But as far as initial reviews go, they should acknowledge when games are going to get updated, but they have every right to not like what immediately comes out. I think that. I think that's fair.
It is a case by case situation, but like that's why I'm saying, like, okay, if you're gonna be objective about certain elements, or at the very least, if you're actually calling yourself a journalist, then and there are changes to the game that contradict your thought when you said don't buy this game. I think it's fair to say like, okay, now things are a little different. You keep that in mind.
Don't buy this game yet. There's a difference between don't buy this game and don't buy this game yet. Even with Cyberpunk, you look at Cyberpunk 2077, that nobody was expecting a ton of DLC. We were expecting a complete experience right at the beginning, and then maybe later it'll add stuff because that's pretty common. what we got was a giant glitchy mess.
Yeah.
We got tons of errors.
We got nothing.
Yeah, and even then, there were journalists who, rightfully so, said, "Okay, this game is a giant mess. When they fix this stuff, it's probably going to be super awesome. But for right now, it might not be worth your money. Give them time to fix it." Which I'm hearing that they still didn't fix certain things, depending on what system you're playing it on.
They still have not, yeah.
Yeah,
like,
that game had catastrophic problems when you tried to play it on PS4. So
there are modders that already fix more. There are modders that already fix more of the game than the developers themselves.
Which is not fair.
But also not new, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But going a little bit. Okay, I think we covered that. But also, just taking it into Monster Hunter, I rather have the update service to be more consistent. And like I mentioned before, Monster Hunter at the end of the day was a Capcom game in all of its glory. And by that I mean, I got Monster Hunter Tri. Oh, what's that? 2 years later, Monster Hunter Tri Ultimate full price with more stuff that should have been in the game. Fuck.
Yeah.
Iceborne. That's why a lot of people were super into Iceborne. Instead of joining, shouldn't this be in the game? Shut up, dude. You don't understand. This is better than paying full price again. Shut up. This is better.
Yeah, this is. I mean, we've had this. If you guys are familiar on my stream, we've had this discussion before where, re-releasing a whole game for people will complain about $20 and $30 DLC, but they'll go buy a $60 re-release of the game that has that DLC. Like the only difference is that DLC on it, which you could have bought for $20 or $30, but now you're paying $60 just for the whole game again. And that's sort of but that's a whole separate thing. I don't know that with Monster Hunter, is that something that has been an issue where
was always
that a thing
that way.
Monster Hunter?
It was always that way. Yeah, every game had an ultimate version. Had an ultimate re-release until Iceborne.
And again,
I think the only ones that didn't have it were.
And I was gonna say, Dragoon says in the chat here that to be fair, Tri was kind of pre-DLC. That's where
every game was that.
Yeah, every game was like that. Every game was like that. Where so I understand that. I'll never look at a game on Super Nintendo that got an updated version later and think, I can't believe they sold me another full game. There's no option. There's
Street Fighter.
Right, yeah, Street Fighter. There's no option for them to not have done that back then. Nowadays, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna poke the Azeroth here by saying it. Persona 5.
Oh my god, don't even get me started on that.
Persona 5 had no reason to be sold for them to sell Persona 5 Royal. That could have been even a $40 DLC pack. That could have been a $40 DLC pack, but they made you go buy another $60 version of the game.
Yeah. And that's where Square got smart with that, where they made Remind for KH3 as a DLC thing instead of just going the full Final Mix.
Or now with
this Final Mix a separate game. Or
now with Final Fantasy 7. With 7 Remake, how even Part 1 already has an ultimate version with the PS5 version. You cannot get that extra chapter anymore on PS4. You cannot.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm glad that they at least. That's why I at least respect that they try to compensate by giving the game for free on PS Plus for a period of time. But again, that's why I do appreciate. Well, okay, not appreciate because again, there's always that debate. I much rather buy the Ultimate kit Rise than buy Rise Ultimate again. Because that's why I didn't actually finish Tri Ultimate, at least fairly. Let's just say that Homebrew was my best friend at the time. Homebrew, because again, you're telling me play the whole game again. get
Yeah.
all of the stuff that you had again.
Yeah,
and good luck.
And imagine doing that with this game, with Monster Hunter Rise. Imagine telling everybody to
Oh,
play
fuck
Monster
that.
Hunter Rise for however many hours it took you to get to the end of the story, develop all your best gear, do all of that stuff, and then you come out with the next DLC as a full game, but you have to play through the whole first part of the game again. You'll get a lot of people that just won't bother.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
so I mean that's the whole DLC discussion, and that's that's another 2 hours.
Yeah, and with that said, going a little bit into this particular update, you mentioned before that the Apex monsters. It seems that with every Apex monster, it's gonna be limited time, like Rampage exclusive until the next patch, while also giving you new one for the Rampage, as well as the reintroduction of the all of them are from previous games. The new Elder Dragons, Kushala Daora, Teostra, and Camellia. Like those three are staples of the series. And as always, my favorite fight was Kushala Daora. I always love fighting that boss. Camellia's, I thought it was okay. I don't like
it was a little
Teostra.
easy. If I'm being honest, I thought the Camellias was a little easy. I was expecting more of a challenge, and it really kind of wasn't. It was more just annoyance than anything else.
Yeah.
The Kushala is a great fight. That's always a really fun. I remember really enjoying that monster in the world, and so that was a very fun fight. Teostra is the one that I had to fight the most because the Teostra gear. I mentioned that I'm wearing a set of gear where all 4 pieces are from the same set. It's the Teostra gear.
Let me guess. Critical Eye.
Critical Eye.
Let me guess.
Teostra's Blessing, which is fantastic. It boosts Blast. I think Teostra's Blessing boosts Blast.
Boost Blast and Fire.
Yeah, and I love blast weapons. I very much. I did nothing like seeing that big number pop up. So I have, but that's the monster that I feel like was a lot like the Magnum Aloe. It was a very fast fight, very quick paced. Yep. And then of course I think that's the fight where the Magnum Aloe actually shows up and they have the little turf war. Is that with He appears in Teostra and Kushala Daora, and that's where I was gonna mention, and with the Elder Dragons, the Wyvern riding is almost infinite. Like you can legit get Magnum Aloe to be you can ride Magnum Aloe immediately again. You can ride when you're fighting Elder Dragons. As it has been seen on the screen a couple times, I managed to ride Tigrex and the Magnum Aloe twice when fighting Kushala Daora. And the game kind of asks you for that because either that or their weakness, because as expected, Elder Dragons, they're the hardest fights in the game. And I love how the Kushala, I think this is a new move, or at least it was customized for this game. He creates a giant tornado around it, and it's sucking you in, and you have to use the wipe to get away. Yeah,
you have to.
Well, I throw a flash bomb and it stops him.
You just you can do that. Yeah,
bomb. I always carry my flash bombs with me. But yeah, those were good fights. I thought they were a lot of fun. I also enjoyed the fact that they did not tell anybody that they were actually releasing a 4th monster.
Oh my god, yeah.
And I think that caught everybody by surprise. I was very happy for the Basilgeist. It was an obnoxious fight.
I was about to ask, was it a good surprise? Was it a good?
It was a good surprise in that I didn't know it was coming. did not enjoy that fight in World very much because it was a lot more difficult than it is in this game. I do find that a lot easier in this game. Part of that is probably just because I understand how to fight it, and I am a lot stronger now than I was when I was fighting it before. You're hunting them with you're hunting them with the power of the moon. Yeah,
man.
I mean, at this point, I'm super powerful, whereas in World, I was still leveling up, and so it was a much more difficult fight. I was happy. I very much liked it.
I think it's the Teostra weapon, like the one that looks like a Sailor Moon staff.
Yeah. I think
or
it
Sakura
like,
Card Captor.
That's what I was gonna say. For me, it looks more like Card Captor Sakura's wand. I keep trying to seal the monster away.
There was that. Yeah. I mean, that you cannot. I wish you could do that for Elder Dragons because once again, you cannot capture them, but you can ride them for some reason, which it's a little odd. But again, it's whatever. Since
that's all right.
Rather than not.
You gotta ride them and then get your camera mode out and then grab a picture as fast as you can.
Oh yeah.
I'll be honest. I'm a little surprised they haven't done because there's you gotta hunt them all, and a couple of times there are missions where you capture them. I'm a little surprised that there isn't a bonus for not taking pictures of all of them.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't mind playing.
I think there's a reward, but for some, there's some endemics apparently. You can check it out on YouTube because I did not care nor knew properly about that. But there are some nature endemics, like some creatures that you can just spot out of boundaries. And you can take photos of them, and you get achievements and all that stuff. Like nothing really important. But there are some stuff in the level design that I still don't really know. Like the notes, for example, like those little things that you can find by exploring some shrines in the areas.
The relics and stuff. Yeah,
the relic notes or whatever.
Yeah, I looked up lists for those, and I went to go start hunting them. It's kind of a pain. I found it very boring. It might be really relaxing for some people to just sort of explore the areas and find those things, but I found it kind of obnoxious. So and obviously you can't mark the map in game. So I find myself going back and forth between my phone or my computer with the image on there, and then when I get there, I'm sort of looking around. Like, big respect to everybody who found all of those. I just didn't bother doing it. And you know what? As dumb as it sounds, maybe if I got a PS4 trophy for it, right? Remember how PS4 had the trophies and stuff? Maybe if I got a trophy for it, I would think like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's my, that's a little carrot to chase for me. Nintendo doesn't have that, so I'm gonna do it, and they're not gonna give me anything for it. So I don't want to do it.
Yeah, and with that, I think we can go into the two major monsters from this game, and I'm gonna start with the last one because the first one caught my attention a little bit more. I went with Narwa, because the plot of the game is monsters are attacking intentionally, like they're aiming for the village, but apparently they're being guided by two particular monsters called Narwa and Ibushi. Also, just to let people know, I did not layer my armors for the recordings. All of those are actual pieces. All right, like I told you, like I was grinding them more than enough that I could do a fashion show, and I did. So, but also I will say beforehand, the fact that now the layer armor applies to all weapons is amazing.
Oh yeah,
I am glad that is now all of them instead of like some event armor or whatever. But yeah, like Narwa is the Thunder Serpent, which again another type of Elder Dragon that is a staple, but not him specifically. Well, her. This one actually has a gender.
Yeah.
And these two are supposed to be attacking the area, and I want to start with Narwa because this is a regular fight. I was actually the fight I thought was very interesting and very unique, and I told Solar when I was playing the game, like, never in my life I thought I would actually have a platforming Monster Hunter fight.
I mean,
like,
obviously the wire bugs definitely help make it a lot easier.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Like, but you're pretty much like, that's the fight, like, jumping around, going through the platforms and using the weapons to your advantage. Like, it's just using the entire arena at your benefit because Narwa is also in that, and also the attacks having blind spots, like it will throw laser beams that you can just kind of walk across. It has some onion rings, thunder rings that you can just look. You can just look so badass by just walking around, like, through them, like. What do you think about?
I like these fights. I thought that they were really good fights. I thought that they were very good boss fight. They felt like boss fights and not just big. Because that's the thing when you look at the monsters that you're hunting, which is, very on the nose for the name of the game. In any other game, these would be like boss fights. Fighting all of these other monsters, fighting, everything from even something like a Kaluyaku, is that what it is? Fighting some of those early monsters, they're boss fights. In any other kind of game, that's what they are. There's the little, guys, the little chumps that are all over the place, and then there's the boss monsters. So it's difficult to take a game where you're primarily fighting bosses and feel like you're fighting a boss. And I think that these two monsters in particular did exactly that job. I feel because of the added mechanics of the fight, because of the platforming, because of just the overall extra size of the monsters, because the fact that I couldn't just hit them, I could hit them anywhere, but I really wanted to focus on certain spots. That made them feel like real bosses compared to everything else in the game, and not just, when I fight Teostra, when I fight Kushala, I just feel like I'm fighting stronger monsters. I'm doing the same thing that I'm doing for the other monsters, but I need to be a bit stronger with the added mechanics with the Narwa, and again, this goes back to my dislike of the Rampages. The Rampages I don't like because you have to set all of that stuff up. You have to be very active about it. You've got all the weapons here and everything is set up. You don't have to use any of them. If you don't want to use the cannons and the arrows and all of that stuff, you don't have to. You can fight the monster straight up. But
more like you don't have to.
Yeah, I
because I just remember something.
I did use some of them. I'm not gonna lie, but there were times where you didn't have to.
No, but like, here's the thing, like, because like I said, like, this game more than any other encourages the whole creativity with your weapon, either with the variety of the weapon or weapons, like we're using different kinds. And this man, like, I already defeated Narwa by the time he was doing it on stream, and this man just went with his insect glaive. This thing is flying all over the place. So what did he do? It was like, I'm just gonna fly towards him as well.
I flew at, like, you talked about platforming. You talked about having to platform and jump from platform to platform, and I'm literally just like, all right, I'll use my insect glaive and I'll just spinny hit through the air. I'm crashing right through the monster and I'm landing on the platform. And yeah, the insect glaive really did eliminate some of the challenge. Like, I imagine if I had the hammer, for instance, there would have been a lot more platforming.
I mean, in my case, I had my main weapon. I use three. Well, no, sometimes four. The hammer, longsword, switch axe, and charge blade. Mainly the charge blade, as it's been shown on the stream. Like, and so again, my hits will count bigly, like majorly on this fight, but again, I'm just seeing you like flying and fly all over the place and constantly hitting her, and I'm like, this man just broke this fight, and I'm like, oh damn.
Why choose between attack and defend when I can just do both?
And you're like, okay, let's fight, and just Naruto music all over the place, just Naruto.
Constantly for 20 minutes as I fight the monster. Yeah, but I enjoyed it. But even with that, I felt like I was fighting a boss in a game that is all bosses. All that kind of encounter. So it felt really good. It was a lot of fun to fight that. It's funny because I haven't actually gone back to redo some of these fights. And I think that part of that is just because they feel like giant bosses. So it almost feels like I don't need to, unless I need a part from them, which I don't. It almost feels like I don't need to go back and do them. Whereas some of the other ones, like when I just want to kill some time and I want to get into a fight, I don't choose these fights. And it's not because I didn't like them. It's just because they felt like these grand things, and I've overcome it. So like I don't even think about doing it again, which I probably should go back and do it a couple more times because they were actually fun fights.
Yeah. Again, for me, like two fights. Again, and this goes back to the fact that again, I did once I had a strategy for the Rampage, it became like, okay, now I can just play the game normal because I already have this pieces set up in a way that I don't need to care anymore. Like I don't need to worry about these things anymore. And because of that, like when I go back into that particular fight, like it's all right. So, but again, like it does bring sense that World did not have this kind of fight. Like even with Xenojiva, which was the giant regular match, it felt like a normal fight. And Sora Magdaros was a Rampage.
It was a regular fight with a monster that was a little bit larger, and this felt like something different. This felt like a completely different. Like I'm for the updates and stuff for the new DLC and everything. I'm not excited to see what happens with the Rampages. I don't care because it's the mode itself that I'm not a fan of. I'm excited to see what new fight like this I'm going to experience. What new monster will it be just like this, or will it have other mechanics? Will they do something to nerf my jumping through the air, or will I be able to just do that the whole time and trivialize the whole fight?
Yeah. Also, sorry about that little technical issue. I actually forgot to edit Ibushi. Ibushi, like of the two fights, because unfortunately because of that, this is just the raw footage. Like so, it's not cut. Like it's just the entire thing. But when I fought, the major thing. Again, these are a pair. These are a couple of monsters.
Yeah.
And because of that, they are looking for the two of them, like which are resonated through Hinoa and Minoto, some twins that again connect with these monsters. But and again, they're hinting that we're gonna get a possible third wind serpent because of they're looking to breed. They're trying to like do something. Well, that's a possibility, but not a fact. I want you to go first because I will go crazy on on this particular fight? What do you think? Suddenly being tossed into Ibushi.
Well, Ibushi was the one again. I mean, you know, where I'm gonna broken record myself here, but Ibushi was the one that you fight in the Rampage.
Yeah.
And so right off the bat, I'm not a fan of that. The Ibushi fight, I didn't like as much because we were back to it's just a bigger monster. It didn't
really
feel,
okay.
Yeah, it didn't feel like. I mean, it felt like a stronger monster. It, you know, there were different mechanics and stuff, but again, having it wrapped up in the Rampage, and I think that's what helped with the Narwa fight, is that you had a style of play that was unique to that fight. Whereas for Ibushi, you were in a Rampage. It could have been in a Rampage with any other monster. It just happened to be Ibushi this time. So the fight itself to me played out exactly the same. It was still a fine fight. It was a good monster. It was nice to see a bit of variety. Feel like I was fighting something that I had to pay attention to a little bit more. But ultimately, because of the fact that it was in a Rampage, it felt very samey compared to some of the other ones, especially when you compare it to the Narwa fight. What I appreciate is that this fight came first. I appreciate that I did this first, so that Narwa was. You know, Narwa, and that's what helped with Narwa as far as feeling like a special experience, was that Narwa went second, so it was a special experience. I would have been more upset with this fight if this was the second fight. You know, if you had that Narwa fight and then it's like, oh no, Ibushi's here, and then you're expecting the same kind of thing, and then you just come into a regular Rampage. So I'm glad that this one came first, so that Narwa felt like a surprise.
I can because you are definitely expecting, like you mentioned, like you're expecting another Rampage, but now with this one, meanwhile Narwa was like, okay, you have one cannon, one Dragonator, but it's all still you. Like you're fighting this thing,
still me.
But
and when the Narwa fight came up, that's what I thought was going to happen. I thought it was okay. I'm going to go back into the Rampage. Like I groaned when the fight came up, because I thought I'm going to go back into a Rampage, and I'm going to slog my way through it until I get to the part of the fight that I like. And to find out that I wasn't there, like I almost didn't notice that there were weapons and stuff during the Narwa fight, because I wasn't really expecting it. And then when I realized, oh, there's stuff set up, I remember thinking, this is a great fight. Ibushi was a good monster. I love I kind of like when it goes upside down. For some reason, I get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
The fact that it's like flying upside down and it's roaring at me and stuff like that makes me laugh. But the fight itself, I just, it was a Rampage, and I'm not a big fan of the Rampages. But the monster I thought was great. I think they're both really, really terrific.
Yeah, for me, like, and once again, like, here's where the major argument happens, and why I wanted to go with this fight as the second one, because to me, at the very least, like that particular fight felt like it caught me by surprise. I can probably put it that way, because again, I was expecting like a Rampage and all that. Like I knew what I was getting myself into, but what I was not expecting was the way it just goes. Like, because you're minding your own business, like you're just doing your thing. Suddenly, like out of thin air, suddenly like the music starts changing, and you just see this thing just flying. And it was the first time I fought Rampage, so like a real properly strategized Rampage. So just seeing this monster like walking in and breaking the gate, and you're like, fuck. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean,
oh
that was that was very cool. It was very intimidating, and in that they did a good job of making it feel a bit different from the other monsters. My problem was just the progression of the fight itself, and it didn't, it had a great introduction and all, and then it still just felt like a regular fight after that. But the introduction of it is great, and it was very. I was more intimidated by that than I was any other monster. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I like bigger targets because I like to fly around and hit them.
Yeah, I know. I mean, in your case, you were right at your element with that particular boss, but you just have this entire thing happening with, and you just see that with this thing handling your chain breaking platform, like it caused an impact that once again I didn't feel in any monster in World, because and again I swear when I got World I was excited, but I always felt that it missed something. That was trying to do new things. It was also sacrificing some of the charm from previous games and some of those spirit elements. Not focus on being one thing, because Monster Hunter Tri, for example, was very tropical, since it's the one that had the underwater mechanic. You were swimming and all. 4 was all about traveling through the world. Meanwhile, World was like, okay, for Cristobal Column, let's kill everything that tries to stop us from living here. But what are we? We're white people. Oh, okay. We're what? So, yeah, like I said, we're more loose here. Don't worry, we're more loose. And so you just see this charm, because this game has one identity and it runs with it all the way through. It wasn't until Iceborne that I really started feeling a huge amount of spirit with the game and what it wanted to be.
Okay.
So again, that's the thing that happened to me, and you just have this particular fight. It starts going that way. He's handling your shit. Just when you play it for the first time, he's seeing these dialogues saying like, "Oh, it's over, we're dead," and all that shit. And for me, like, this game is in the same way like you see Star Wars or those things that you grew up with and nobody else was there. Because a lot of people like, oh, World is it's a great community, and now there's a community because all I knew is that nobody they played this thing with me. Nobody plays this thing.
And
but now I know that it wasn't.
World was the first real. World was probably the first time I was really aware of how big the franchise was. I knew that they had a bunch of games, and I think that Monster Hunter was something that I always kind of thought was bigger in Japan than it was here. And
it is,
which was absolutely true.
The only thing bigger than it is Pokemon.
Or Dragon Quest. So it was nice to see that there was a community that really liked Monster Hunter over here in the West, and it was nice to be, to experience that. It was nice to experience that community and all. I got it. I get the idea of this, something like Smash Brothers, for instance, where if you're not in the community, you don't understand why people get excited when there's a new character announced. You don't understand why, and so when you look at Monster Hunter from the outside and they say, oh, we're adding 3 new monsters. You go, okay, they're adding some stuff to the game. That's cool. Whereas people who are in the community are, oh my God, they're adding these new monsters. Which monsters are they going to be? Are they going to be some of my favorites? I wonder if they're going to change the mechanics. I wonder if they're going to change how it looks. Are there going to be Apex version? Like there's all of this excitement that we have around these things. So I can see with a monster like this, coming into the fight and destroying a bunch of stuff that so far has not been destructible, and I'm assuming this was an older monster, or at least the older monster character model. That because this is not new, right? This character model for this monster is not a brand new thing.
For which one?
For Ibushi. This is not. Is this a brand
no,
new
it is.
character
There are. Yeah, Ibushi and Narwa are completely new, and there are only two of. There are two of three Elder Dragons that are like this. With one being called Amatsu, which I think is what they're hinting, because again, that's a big requested monster as well. It's pretty much a combination of these two. He controls wind and thunder.
Okay, so yeah, so for this monster in particular, you're getting this lead in to an experience, and I guess that's where I don't I don't get that experience because I'm not familiar with Monster Hunter, so I didn't know about this third version that's like them combined. So now that I do, I'm interested to see if that's what it means. So I imagine that the excitement over seeing this monster would have been much greater for you, because not only do you see this monster, you see the possibility of what is to come.
Yeah, exactly. And also, again, the items with Fatal is a big deal, but again, you're just fighting this thing. You don't know what's gonna happen, and suddenly, like, you're just a certain time goes by, and you're just like getting those pieces of dialogue. They're like, okay, it doesn't make sense, and only like the music starts also changing. That is another showcase of what you're just saying, how some things are iconic to the series. This happens in all Monster Hunters. Yeah, but just to see the fucking proof of a hero playing during this fight that already caught me off guard, I'm just like, yes!
Yeah, all right, this is it. We're in it now. We're in it.
Yeah, it is the equivalent of a reversed Uno card on the meme. Why am I listening to boss music? Why am I?
Yeah, I was gonna say that it's the gag of, hey, look, there's a whole bunch of items here. Oh, cool, a save point. Hey, this door is locked. When you walk into the room, it's like, oh, that's music I haven't heard before. Why is this room so big? Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, you finally put it all together, like, oh, it's about to go down.
Yeah, this thing is not. I'm gonna die. I'm in danger.
That's right. Yeah. Whenever people talk about
you get.
People always say like, what ability would you like to have from a video game? Like what monster ability, what boss ability or something. And people always say like, I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to do that. I've always got some goofy answer. So one of my answers used to be, because we used to talk about that with World of Warcraft, which is, what monster ability would you like to have the most? And we would always say like a 5-minute enrage timer. Right, like I don't want a specific ability. I just want to know that if you don't defeat me in 5 minutes, I'm automatically going to win. When it comes to stuff like this,
you don't kill me right now, I'm gonna blow you up.
Yeah, you've got. If we're gonna get into a fight, you've got 3 minutes to do it. For stuff like this, it's always like my own theme song. Right, I want that if anybody ever messes with me, and they're like, all right, well, let's fight. And then I put up my hands and then my own personal song starts playing, because that's when people are going to be like, okay, whatever's about to happen, I'm probably going to lose.
It's gonna... Yep.
This is perfect.
So, that's why Ibushi in particular got a bigger impact on me, because it just brought it brought everything that World didn't have for me. That charm, that epicness, that sense of adventure, like that whole feeling, like, okay, what I'm doing is big in the context of the game. I'm fighting, like I'm not just killing things for the sake of survival. This is something of the story, and building up something bigger. Like, so it's exactly for that reason that, like, no, this is why Monster Hunter is important to me, and it brought me back to those times of like Alatrion in Tri or the Gormagala in 4. Like just that sensation of adventure. That's what I love from Monster Hunter.
You said a good word there. The sense of epicness. This sense of scale. I would say I always call it scale. All of a sudden I'm not fighting just a couple of monsters. I am now fighting for the protection of everybody. I'm fighting to make sure that we're all safe. Like all of a sudden, the scale of what you're doing seems a lot more grand than it was. So I like when fights make me do that, and that's why I like the Narwa fight better, because the Narwa fight made me feel like, okay, now we're at the point where we are fighting for the protection of all of us, and it's not just another monster. It's not just another battle.
Mm-hmm.
This is the battle.
Exactly. But so yeah, overall, like that is with everything that's been said. Solar, do you have anything that you have thoughts on this so far?
I mean, you guys were mentioning, music and everything. Honestly, I'm not sure if that's something you have in the discussion lineup, but I feel like one of the major things that I really love about Rise, even just from an outsider's perspective, is the soundtrack, especially for fights, and especially for the big ones.
The custom songs for the monsters.
Yeah, I will say this one. First of all, there's that with how each generation keeps just growing and growing, and some flagship monsters are being brought back. They're also being brought back with their songs. Like Mizutsune had its own boss fight. The Xenogur had its own boss fight. Right? Like I think Rathalos doesn't.
Xenogur's a good one,
yeah, the Xenogur is amazing.
That's good music.
Like Nargacuga does have its own. And Yang has its own, which is weird,
And you can't forget the music for the Kezu fight. Oh, good song.
Oh my god,
good song.
Okay, you guys want to know the Kezu soundtrack? Here, this is it. It's gonna make sense on the stream. Gonna make sense. Goddamn.
Probably my least favorite fight is the Kezu fight. And because of that, it is actually because of that. It is because I don't like the lack of music. The music's
the
so
silence of it all is just very weird.
And it's not even that. It's not even that it's unsettling or anything. We just talked about how great the music is. Why would I want you to shut it off? I want to hear more good music, not less.
Yeah,
and it's not for the Kezu. The Kezu probably can't hear me. No, the Kezu can't see me. The Kezu can hear me.
That's apparently. But in Tri, there was this one monster called Giginox that was all poison and all, and it had its own music. For some reason, it had its own music, and it's this violin distorted kind of thing that is actually scary.
But it works. If it works, it's great. But I need it to work. I need it to be interesting.
Yeah, because they use the excuse that is for the sake of being unsettling. That is not unsettling. It's boring. Especially because again, the Kesu is not that scary. It's more pornographic than anything. Once you realize what it looks like,
it really kind of is. I think it's just and I get what they're going for in that it's supposed to feel unsettling, but if you have even a slightly dirty mind, I mean it's white and it's veiny and it extends its neck out and it looks exactly like that. The veininess
I'm
doesn't
sorry.
help either.
Don't even get me started on that. So again, the music, and I will say this game is I always have. I love the trap stuff. That's why the soundtrack used for the stream has been the Monster Hunter Tri soundtrack, all the way through.
Okay.
But Rise, because of its folklore, because of how once again it just runs with it, like Forrest Gump runs with the ball when it comes to the soundtrack. When it comes, like it just goes nuts with it. You have the Hub World theme. You have some of the song, the overall music, like just being very with that Asian aesthetic. Where like it feels with that feel of you're watching a Yoha Q, like a play, all the way through. So you're constantly feeling that charm and uniqueness of it all. And it only gets crazier when both Narwa and Ibushi, which are once again tracks that have vocals, and they just go nuts with it, and they just go.
There's nothing like a boss song that has vocals in it. That right there is that's the goal. Like when I made the joke earlier about like what do I want? I want my own boss theme. My boss theme has vocals in my head.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're singing. Here's what I'll tell you. My boss music has vocals, and they're singing in Latin. There you go.
Okay.
That's how you know I'm serious.
My music vocals. No, it's not a mariachi solar. Fuck you. No, it's not a mariachi. It's Ultimate Battle. It's Ultimate Battle from Dragon Ball. Sorry, as simple as that.
That was what I was thinking of.
Draws.
You know, give me One Winged Angel from Final Fantasy.
I
worked
was
on that.
like Greg going full Nobuo Uematsu.
Yeah, give me one the and not the in-game version. I don't know if you've ever heard the orchestrated version of that song of One Winged Angel. That's an incredible version of that song. It's so good. That's what I want if I have to get into a fight with somebody, that's what I want to play on the speaker so they understand it's about to go down. You are about to get supernovaed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Dragoon mentioned the interest in the My language. I don't know what that actually means, but I will check that out. And for the 10th anniversary, they released a slow vocal version of, and it's beautiful. Like not epic, beautiful. Like I'm
okay.
I'll pass it out later. Yeah, I will. And but again, just the music that there's just charm, and that's the thing that World definitely lacked for me. Yeah. And probably the reason why I am able to go back to the classic formula before going back to World. Now that Rise is here. But with that, yeah, I think we can start hitting into some final thoughts. I'm gonna start with Solar because you definitely had a lot to say here, man. So what are your final thoughts here?
I mean, I just didn't want to interrupt, but also just the fact that again, I am an outsider when it comes to most of Monster Hunter. But
so am I. That's true. I mean, for as much as I like World, I didn't play Iceborne, and for as much as I like Rise, I didn't play any of the other games. So when people get into these really deep Monster Hunter discussions, the reality is, unless they're talking about Rise or the first half of World, I don't have a lot of input on them. I can just say that I like them.
Yeah, it's always been such a weird relationship with me, like with Monster Hunter, like because I have so many friends that are heavy into it, and I've always wanted to get into it, but at the same time, like in 3 and 4, I always just had a rough start. But with World, I felt like I kind of had a bit more grasp on things, and Rise kind of looks like it's even better. With getting that approachability, so I think I'll definitely want to get Rise in the future, especially for the fact that the updates, there'll be more and more content rolling out as time goes by. But
also sorry, Dragoon meant Monster Hunter language, not my language. That's what it caught me off guard. Like, what do you mean? Your language? Okay. We all speak English.
Yeah, it says my language, so I wasn't really sure. Okay.
Yeah, like for me, I'll find it. I'll definitely have more experience, I think, way down the line as I get further into it. I like all the improvements that they made with Rise. Like, I love even just from a surveyor's point, I can see that. I can see like the stuff with the Palamute, like, and the what did you call it? The not grappling hook, even though it is kind of
the wire bug.
The wire bug, yeah.
Wire bug.
The wire bug. Like, I actually really do like that they they put more emphasis on mobility, because that was one of the things that kind of took me getting a bit used to when I played previous Monster Hunter games, was how kind of tanky you can feel in terms of speed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so having the wire bug and having the Palamute as an enhancement to your agility and a general way of traversing the level, and quickly getting back into the fight in case you faint and have to go across the entire map just to get back to the monster. It definitely makes the experience more energetic, like I feel like it needs to have, because it's these big fights against monsters, and you're hunting them all the time. And obviously it wouldn't be fun if it felt like a slog.
Yeah, so, you're just lumbering around everywhere.
Yeah. And so I really do like the improvements in Rise, and again also the soundtrack that I've there are songs that I've listened to from Rise, and it's like
that I made you listen.
Well, not only that, I've curiosity has gotten me to where I've listened to more, and it's like I'm not sure if this is a new thing, like with all the vocal songs and like the heavy emphasis on the melodies and within them. I'm not sure if that was in World or like the previous games, but I do like that there's an abundance of those, and how it kind of adds further character to the wide variety of monsters. And I think like with this whole discussion, that it's made me kind of appreciate how the depth that comes from appreciating Monster Hunter when it comes to the monsters themselves. Like I liked that comparison it's like that you made, Greg, of how with the whole reason why we get excited for Smash characters is the same as why we get excited for new monsters, because like you're wondering if it's a returning one, and it's all about those memories that are associated with it, and also the personalities that each monster has, and also just the new gear or returning gear. And so it's a lot of deeper layer, and I kind of it kind of gives me a new appreciation for that for the monsters in Monster Hunter.
They're the main star.
Yeah.
And what about you, Greg? Because you say that you don't have that much experience, but you're still for plenty of reasons, like the gamer with more knowledge than all of us right now. So again, like I still value the things that you have to say, even though you're new to the series, because you're still expecting certain things from this kind of RPG, or just this sort of like mechanics and games, or what did you or pacing, abilities, exploration, all those things. So I do consider you like, or what your criticism to be valuable, because you know how this shit works.
I regardless of whether or not there's certain things that I may be expecting in this, I'm expecting this to be the same as any other video game, which I'm expecting it to be fun. I'm expecting the experience to be entertaining and enjoyable and approachable. And Monster Hunter, this game in particular, World, I could see people, especially in the beginning, especially when I've researched what wasn't there, things like the grappling, whatever it was, clutch claw, World seems like I would not have had a good time without some of that stuff. This game has done a good job of making sure that it feels accessible to newcomers, and it has done a great service to itself by making sure to include these things. I would be more concerned about later on, the next Monster Hunter game maybe not having some of that stuff, like the Village Quest, for instance. I think that those are things that are going to be staples from now on. I think that having a Palico and a Palamute,
I at the very least hope the Palamute.
Yeah, I think that they're going to be staples from now on. I think that they were great additions to the game, and even without having a lot of history with Monster Hunter, I know what I like and I know what I don't like, and I know that if I didn't have some of these things that this game has, I would like it less.
All right. Yeah, no, I completely.
Yeah.
I completely with that
overall,
factor, and
overall, it's just a great game. Go buy Monster Hunter Rise.
I'm not totally. And as for me, again, I'm gonna bring the close thoughts here. Well, first of all, overall, yeah, I think we all enjoy it, especially Solar was just listening to it. Just like, oh, good, I don't have to play this thing. I am excited, and it's a constant evolution. This is going a little bit into the whole Nintendo debacle regarding F-Zero. This is what people kind of want when they say we want something new in the franchise. Like we just every single game has a little thing. Sometimes the Rampage, and people will take it mixedly because a complete change of pace with the game. But things like the Palamute, things like just overall mechanics of the game, the maps being designed to be more accessible. The online feature, like just rework with what you already have. You don't need to keep reinventing the wheel. You don't keep.
Yeah, we don't need grand ideas. To quote an article from a few weeks ago, we don't. They don't always need to be grand ideas. They need. I mean, you look at this. Most of these monsters are old monsters that returned, and people are happy about it. And that's a good thing. It's easy. It's easy to make a game that people like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that's the core thing that you have to be sure. I also understand why people sometimes you just want the same thing, but also not really. Like again, it's a complicated thing, but I think Monster Hunter, while not perfectly, has done its best effort on being consistently good at adding and shifting new things as the games go on, so you can at least tell them apart with each other. But to be fair, without grand ideas, we're gonna end up with grand results. Yeah, but sometimes exactly. But you don't need to think that your idea has to be big. You don't need to be sure. You don't need to think that your idea needs to be big in order to be big.
Yeah.
You don't think too hard about that.
Yeah, sometimes people don't. Not everything has to be a grand idea. Not everything has to be a giant leap. But make sure that the steps in between are interesting. And this game is a good example of it is very similar. It's very, it's a good balance between what we know and new things. And Monster Hunter, I think, gets it. It's with this game in particular, it gets it really well. It gave everybody a lot of what you're familiar with hunting the big monsters. You're familiar with using these weapons. You're familiar with traveling these areas, but now you get to do it in a new, interesting way. It expands what you know without taking much away, and that's all a game needs to do. It doesn't need to rework the whole thing. It doesn't need to, like you said, it doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. It just needs to make the wheel a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
Dragon. We need revolutionary ideas, but not everything has to be one. Not
Game
one. needs to be a good idea. Game 2 doesn't need to be a completely different, significantly larger idea. It just needs to be a better version of the one that came before it.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, you need a big shakeup, Pokemon.
Look, we need. Oh yeah. I don't mean to. And you need people to stop buying your shit when you know it's shit.
Right. We're already 3 hours in. I don't want to start another 3-hour conversation. I got a cat.
I'm not gonna say no. Yeah, I know. You have your own Palico to take care of.
I got my Palico I got to take care of.
But all right, but before that, I know most people here already know you on the stream, but just for the audio people, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Uncle Silver. I think I just changed it to Uncle Silver. So that's the easiest way to find. No space in between that, so it's just Uncle Silver. I'm also on Twitter at SilverGreg78. You can follow me there, and that's where I'll post updates about anything I'm going to be doing. I also post a lot of dumb pictures and ideas and stuff. I have a YouTube channel also, which is YouTube Uncle Silver Gaming. Feel free to go to that and follow it, and don't expect much. I don't use it. I don't use it as much as I should.
Well, and once again, thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to me in a lot of areas, man. Like I guarantee it to you.
No problem. I appreciate it.
And with that,
thanks for the invite.
And with that, thank you so much for listening.